May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer. And it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hello, everybody. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osaya, anakitabuya. Ohio. I see you. Namaste. Kamsa, kamsamida. Habari gani? Jambo, mimi ni Kofi, ninafuraha kukutana na wewe. Bakwatav, Shalom, Yasda, Guam Yaswa, Yasda, Barak Allah Cham Yahava, Shalom Ban at Bar, Shalom at Achiat, Anai Kofi, Kohelet at Servants of Christ, Mashalom Che. Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. And we're appreciative of you coming by and spending some time with us one more again. We're thankful. And hopefully we'll have a nice little setup as best we can in here. And we're appreciative of your time and your energy and your talent and your gifts and all that great stuff that you guys give and things you do behind the scenes. And we praise Yah for you today. We give all honor and praise once again to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And thank you, everybody, for being on with us and tuning in. Once again, we appreciate you. And continuing this series on removing leaven from our home. And so we thank you guys for being a part of this conversation yet again. And we're appreciative of you spending some time with us yet again. And as the season begins to change, as we get closer to March 23rd, Nisan, the beginning of the new year for us, we are excited and grateful to be with you all again. Getting ready for our family fast is going to start March 22nd through the 28th. For those that are going to do intermittent fasting with us, we appreciate you. To the brothers and everybody that showed up last night for our men's meeting, had a great time with y'all. And we're excited as we continue to move ahead. Sisters, this Saturday coming up, which would be March the 25th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, you'll be having your women's meeting. So we're excited about that. And we're thankful and we're grateful to everybody who's coming in here. And let's come on in. Let's say hello, everybody, before we get into this. I'm going to try my best to hit all these comments and everything as you guys come in here. Let's see, Sister Betty, Brother Stephen, how you doing? Sister Marion, everybody who's on here, Flexing, Peace, Brenda, Whitmire, if you're still on, Romac, Mr. Red, everybody who's on here, we really appreciate you today. Anthony Francisco, Tony, Romac, Sister Nadine. I think I said Sister Marion earlier. If not, hello again, sis. How you doing? Brother Vincent, Omex King, Sister Monica, Brother Ali, Sister Austral, Brother TJ, everybody who's on, Miss Pierce. We appreciate you. Gertrude, everybody. Sammy, if I missed your name, charge it to my head and not to my heart. We are appreciative to have you guys on all these different platforms, and we so thankful for it. How you doing, Eli Santiago, WCP, BIPD, everybody. We appreciate you so very much. Thanks for coming and spending some time with us. And we're going to continue in this series today, and we thank you guys. And today we're going to talk about basically, the fact that many of us live backwards. Many of us are living backwards, and you don't have to live backwards anymore. In this series, Removing the Leaven from Our Home, this is a 40-day period from February 23rd to April 5th, or basically 40-day period leading up to Passover, that we are making sure we get the leaven out of our home. In this season, that means that we are removing sin from our home. Oh, I'm doing a lot better. Thank you, Sister Mary. I'm still going to sit down today just to make sure that I'm following my wife's instructions and the instructions that I've been given to heal. I'm not going to push it. So I'll make sure that I sit down today and possibly sit down for the next couple of days. Who knows? But taking it easy like I'm supposed to. Thank you for asking. Thanks for holding me accountable in that. I appreciate it. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Rojo Beats. How you doing? Zuri Child. Hello. um, Sister Molly, Kente, everybody. And Brother Alton, I think I saw come in there as well. If I didn't say hello to you already, and this, so removing the leaven from our homes. Leaven represents sin. Anything that is sin is basically anything that's causing us to miss the mark. And today we want to talk about once again to live, and how living backwards. If you want to even use the word, I know it doesn't necessarily hit. I guess we're doing more of the spelling of words, how words can be spells if we're not careful. How you doing, Minister Shante? But live backwards, as many people know, especially Eminem is probably the person to make it famous again these last couple decades or whatever. But to live, the word live backwards is literally evil, which is something we should eschew. How you doing, Nay? How you doing, Sister Joy? Oh yeah, no. If I'm not feeling right, I'll go ahead and get out. I'm fine as far as if I'm sitting down, making sure I'm hydrated, eating correctly, all that stuff. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? So, so we're talking about living, and if we live, we should live correctly. But many of us have been living backwards, and so we live backwards. We get this word called evil, right? Live, Evil. I tried to notate that on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure if I did it in a manner that makes sense, but Livevil, right? Literally, when we do things the opposite direction, when we haven't repented and are now facing the correct way, we can see very easily, right, that we are in fact living backwards. And really, a lot of us are in evil and not living. Right. That's why Yahushua said that the enemy, the devil, the one who was against us, right? He comes but to steal, to kill, and destroy in one direction. But he said, I've come that you might have life. I might turn you in the opposite direction and you would have more abundantly. And we discovered before in research with etymology that the letters F and V are interchangeable, right, in English. And so when somebody says life, they're also saying live, right? And also the letters I and O are interchangeable. When somebody says live, they actually are also saying O. So if I'm going to live, I must have life. Or if I have life, I must live. If I'm going to live, I must love. And so love is the opposite of evil. Live is literally backwards of evil. If I spell out evil and then I flip it around, I must spell out live, right? And that's one of the things that we're really dealing with. How you doing, Minister Sharon? How you doing, Sister Nancy? Right. Thanks for being part of Community Peach Cobbler. And how you doing, Yaron? So many of us have lived backwards for so long that it actually evil has become the standard, right? Many of us have watched things for so long that we don't think it's a great thing to watch if there's not evil. Think about that. How if I go to watch a movie, I'm actually watching the movie because I need the villain to be on point. And I need the superhero, right? It used to be the superhero was just supposed to be great. Superhero was just supposed to be somebody that showed up, was ultimate greatness, was civil. Everything they did was for a righteous cause. They were raised correctly. Yeah, amen. Like we've been programmed with that exactly. That used to be standard. Was if you watch Superman was just going to be what we call good. He was going to be great. He was going to do what he's supposed to do. If you watched, even though Batman was wearing some evil stuff, but if you watch Batman, he wasn't supposed to really be killing. He wasn't supposed to be doing this, that, whatever. He was supposed to uphold certain things. The Flash was supposed to uphold a certain standard. Wonder Woman's supposed to uphold a certain standard, right? Static Shock, if you know who that is, supposed to uphold a certain standard. All these people, right? Green Lantern, everybody who you looked at, right? Hawkeye, Hawk Girl, whomever, Superwoman, Supergirl, whatever it was, they were supposed to uphold a standard. Now, we want to see the superhero do evil or be forced to do evil. How you doing, Sister Deja? Now it's become something where evil is mandatory. Matter of fact, now I still haven't watched an episode. At some point, I'm gonna have. I pray about it if I'm led. At some point, I probably will end up watching an episode. But like now, you have something like Lucifer, and everybody wants to say Lucifer, right? Be considered to be the protagonist, right? Who people try to say Lucifer is the devil, that's somebody else's culture, but nevertheless, we know what they mean when they say Lucifer. Well, Lucifer, we want him to be the devil. How you doing, Zion? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate it. And is it Sharon Holly? Thank you for being on with us. You said, or Sabrina. I don't even know that one, right? Matter of fact, there's a thing I was gonna watch on YouTube that I already know how. I'm sorry, on Netflix. I already know how it's gonna be though, so I don't know if I want to subject myself to it because I know how much evil is in it. But like even a lot of anime, I don't even know the name of the show. I know that there's a character who's like supposed to be the strongest guy on Earth. I've seen people talk about it. He's like the strongest guy on Earth. He's able to wrestle down elephants. He like killed. He basically like um SA'd somebody extremely, if I can say it that way, to make sure that he, was able to like, and then use that person as a shield while doing it, and then like walks out, and then like basically like has that person raise his child, messes that person up, and then like that person carry his child, then he has like another child with somebody else that basically he stole from somebody's husband after like killing everybody that worked for the husband and all this other stuff, and then eventually like tells the girl like one day I'm gonna end up breaking your back, and they're trying to make it look as like a sexual thing, and then later on he actually, when the child is older, he actually kills her by breaking her back. Like, and this is supposed to be anime. All these children watching it, all these people watching it, talking about how strong they are, etc. Baki, there you go, Baki. Yeah, I don't know much about the show. I watched it through, if you know about it on YouTube, a guy named CJ the Champ, CJDACHAMP. And he has this thing called Black Air Force Energy, where he talks about how evil all these people are, and he puts them at the round. He has like a round table for how evil somebody is. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's on Netflix, so I haven't watched it, but I feel like I already know what the show is because I saw him give a whole dissertation on the father and on the son, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know if I really need to go through that whole thing. How you doing, Big Roy? How you doing, Eugene? How you doing, Righteous Warrior? So we have to like realize that we live in a world where evil is mandatory, but you got to be in it, not of it. You got to go backwards. You got to go against the grain. How you doing, Mar? You can't bring yourself to watch it. Yeah, you said to watch anything is to really expose oneself to evil. Yeah, just about nowadays, right? So, and then the things like your children don't even want to watch this stuff because it's not cool to watch things that are positive anymore. It's only cool to watch the evil, right? Like it's cool. Siren Head. If y'all know about Siren Head, if you got children, Siren Head was a huge deal for a long time. And thank you for the love. Is that Gwen? Yeah, be in it or not of it, right? It's and it takes us back to a place where we have to realize that it's time to start living correctly, because if we live backwards, we live evil. Anything that is supposed to be like, even the way that you write, your body's designed to go right to left on everything, but they've trained you your whole life to go left to right, and then they'll tell you what, oh, you or your children, you guys have dyslexia. That's evil. you know like that's evil. How you doing, Sister Donna? That is evil, to have all these people trying to do something they're not even designed to do. The more ancient we go, the further back we go. Not only do we read right to left, a lot of times people read top to bottom. Some people read bottom to top. It's in their DNA to do so, right? They did this out of how they were designed and how their tribe moves. How you doing, Devin Black September? I'm sorry, I forget the name that goes with it. I apologize. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Yeah, they tell us to accept things like yin and yang, right? They want you to do that. They say that you should think about the fact that you have just as much evil in you as you have life or you have greatness. But we shouldn't have these things. I'm sorry, Monarch, I missed the first part. I saw raise as a correction, looks like you said. I forget what part I didn't see what you had written earlier, if I had said something that was, oh, okay, you said this is why I don't want children. The world is making people raise evil demons. Well, if you're not called to have children, that's fine, but children will be here regardless. And so we still have to make sure in some way, shape, or form we're prepared to do this, right? And to deal with this ourselves, because we're children of the Most High, at least so we say. So, if you're not led to, please don't have what you're not led to have, but at the end of the day, the children still exist and you still exist. Yeah, we celebrate the anti-hero. Matter of fact, if you were into wrestling, that's what Steve Austin was. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a babyface. If you know what babyface is, and that's a hero in wrestling. And so he was a babyface, but why was he a babyface? Because he was the anti-hero. The Rock became a babyface. He became a great guy. Why? He became evil for both of them. They had to be evil first, and then people loved how evil they were as characters. And really, there was some kayfabe left that meant some people still believed that it was real. So they would be evil as much as possible. And then people loved them being evil so much that they had no choice. They started making what was evil positive. Right? How you doing, Sister Helen? Like that's what they did. Matter of fact, that's what they still do to this day. If you want to make somebody cheered, you make sure that they're evil first. Hulk Hogan was not righteous first. Hulk Hogan was evil first. We come to find out Hulk Hogan was evil in real life too. But Hulk Hogan was evil first. When Hulk Hogan started dying off and it seemed like nobody was really rolling with him, even when he went to WCW, what happened? They started the New World Order. They became evil first, and everybody loved them being evil, and then we loved to cheer him. Matter of fact, I remember thinking how corny sometimes it was because they started copying off of West Side Connection and saying stuff that didn't even make sense for them to be saying, and it was corny. But their diaspora liked seeing them dressed like us because they considered that we were evil. So they started putting on bandanas. They changed the music up, the Wolfpack music. If you remember that, I know I'm going to somebody's nostalgia. But I'm just here to tell you, like they put it in you. They tried to breed you to believe that evil was what you needed to cheer for. And so when they started doing stuff like that, and they started doing gang mentality stuff, and they started mistreating women and bringing women to the ring and having them buck naked and doing all this stuff like that, then all of a sudden, what did you see in the WWE? All of a sudden now, you had Shawn Michaels and Triple H doing the whole DX thing, and everybody doing the crotch chop, right? Y'all might remember that, depending on what your age is, or even if your children were involved, and maybe you were watching this stuff. Like there was a whole thing of raising a whole generation to be on cheer evil. How you doing, Tim? Right? Like they raised us. They tried to raise us on this stuff. I've talked about it before. Even think about not here to denounce anybody, say I have a heaven or hell to put anybody. You're just speaking facts. Like they raised you to think it was acceptable to watch two men that basically were in underwear, even less than bikinis and stuff like that, with go-go boots on, for real, for real. You call them wrestling boots, but I know go-go boots when I see go-go boots, right? And they had us thinking that we needed to cheer that, and having these guys be oiled up, greased up, right? Get their hair wet so it looked like they were sweating already. Get a great sweat before they ran down the aisle. See the Ultimate Warrior run down and see him shaking the ropes and doing all this stuff. See him and Hulk Hogan in a match, and Hulk Hogan has him on his knees, and then his head is right there, and then the Ultimate Warrior gets up, and Hulk Hogan's now on his knees. I'm just saying, like they put a lot of stuff in there, knowing what was there. Matter of fact, they had you into, if you want to talk about true hatred for the LGBTQ plus, you got that. A lot of y'all got that from watching some of the wrestling stuff where they used to have people like Gorgeous George, and later on, many decades later, Gold Dust, and even people like Ric Flair. Notice that if you wanted to boo somebody, you would put on something that was considered to be feminine, right? They had that spray tan on, or they had that tan from the tanning booth, and all that. How you doing, Sister Beverly? They were telling you who was bad and who you were supposed to cheer for. How you doing, Minister Tamara? Thanks for being on. You said you noticed that society really rewards the wrong nowadays. Messed up culture. Yeah, it's a very, and it's extreme. It's in your face. It's not even hidden. We don't value righteousness, right, lawful standing. This is why a lot of people have a problem with law, is because we're still trying to live backwards and be evil, Livevil. And so you have people in the church that want to do as much evil as possible, but want the sacrifice to cover it, right? They want to do as much evil as possible, but still want the sacrifice to cover it. How you doing, G? Right? They want as much evil as possible, but want the sacrifice to cover the evil. They want to eat unhealthy, but then pray over what's unhealthy, praying that Yah will look the other way, that you are doing evil to your body. You said Dolomite? Mm-hmm. Yeah, how you doing, Sister Marcia? Right? Like we are looking at different things as much as we can. Like even think about the food, right? I'm a foodie. What does that mean? I just like food. So I don't care if it's helps my temple. I don't care if it kills my temple. I just like food. There's a bunch of people that's just what they are. A foodie is they just eat without thinking about consequences. It's odd, right? Like literally, your body is the temple of the living Yah, but we don't think about it. We think backwards. And we'll make sure we find a scripture, one scripture, to make sure that we cover up the gluttony. One scripture to cover up the spirit that's killing our bodies. Just one. We'll look for anything we can. Oh, see that scripture, even though we take it out of context. And see that scripture right there. It says it's not what goes in a man that defiles him, is that which cometh out. But that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about religious leaders that were literally spitting out bad law. They didn't even follow the law. They were telling you traditions of their fathers were more important than following the law, even though they didn't honor their father. That was his beef with them. And he called over a whole group of people to tell them that about themselves, and then said, any tree, when his disciples said, hey, you kind of going in on these guys. and Yehoshua, he said what? He said, any tree that's not planted of my father must be pulled up by the root. How you doing, B.Raps? That's what he said. How you doing, Miss Jersey? How you doing, Sister Valerie? Right? That's what the Most High said. That's what Yahushua said. That's what the Messiah said. Any tree that my father didn't plant, I got to pull it up by the root. But they'll tell you what? Oh, why are you judging me? But if I give you the word and the word is Yah, then I'm not judging you. His word is judging you. Now I got to live by what I judge you by, because judge how you want to be judged, condemn how you want to be condemned, right? And forgive how you want to be forgiven. Therefore, give, and it shall be given unto thee. Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. Shall men, he will use men to show you what he uses as a standard. And how you doing, utensil? Nothing. Yeah, food can be a form of weakness. Many things can be a form of weakness. This is why we are removing the leaven from our home. Leaven physically, but also the representation of sin. We've got to start to remove these things from our home. We got to begin to remove these things from our home. Home means family as well, right? How you doing, Sherry? What are we allowing in our community, in our diaspora, that's killing us? And why is it that we don't want those in our community to call them out? Right? To call out the N-word moments. We were talking about this in the men's meeting last night. I believe it was Brother Vincent brought it up in the men's meeting last night. Or at least I brought it up, but I think he like helped us to focus on certain parts I couldn't remember, right? Like the N-word moment. If you've seen the Boondocks, N-word moment, right? And it describes it for you. It shows you different ones. And there's one that he brought out that I had totally forgot about, where he was talking where about a colonial or social construct is a white guy, right? So an N-word moment, N-I-G-G, you know what, right? An N-word moment is when you got two black folk that end up yelling and getting into our whole thing, and who better, who bigger, who badder, who can cuss the other person down, who got more who got more flow or more influence, who got more drip, all this stuff, and we be arguing over craziness. Basically an ego battle, right? And then out of that, like, we end up getting into some serious, ridiculous, crazy stuff. Well, there was one that was brought up last night where there's one where a black guy starts the stuff, and then and I'm using colonial constructs, social constructs here. Black guy starts something, then a white guy begins to start, and then he says, "Wait a minute, I'm white," and he just takes off walking. Right? He says, "Wait a minute, I'm white." Now, if you didn't get the context or you didn't get what they were trying to tell you, they were trying to tell you straight up, like, "Oh, I don't worry about what y'all worry about. I'm part of a context that allows for me." Right? I haven't been trained to live backwards. I haven't been trained that you're worth fighting. I haven't been trained See, and as bad as, and look, I'm not saying it's right that this person was not trained this. I'm not saying they're better than you, but what I'm saying is that's a terrible mentality to have, that somebody can step on your shoe and you are ready to go to jail. How you doing, Shannon? Thanks for being on, right? And because we live backwards. Before you get to Romans 10:9, confessing Yeshua Mashiach, you got to go Romans 10:1-8 and realize that you got away from living in the correct manner. You said in Kenya, want the N-word translates to our study. Well, in a lot of different languages, N-word translates. Well, they don't pronounce it usually Nigga, right? But Negus, Negus, Niger, things like that in many different cultures, especially Afrocentric cultures, it's talking about kings as well, royalty, right? So that's part of the joke that's on you, is that they started mispronouncing who you were. They never really cared about pronouncing who you were right, but they said, "Oh, you think you're kings, but you're going to be slaves." And we've learned backwards. We've lived backwards. Willie Lynch letter tells you that basically all they did was they kept your body and took your mind. Right. It says that if you ever wanted to get out of it, they said the anomaly that must happen, whether you believe, I believe it to be real, but some of y'all want to act like it's fake all of a sudden these last, maybe 3-4 decades that's popped up. So if that's what you living by, then so be it. But I would be one to tell you that even if you don't feel it's real, realize that everything they're telling you that happened was real. They really did put you in those positions. They really did take you. If there's somebody on here, Fansu TikTok, if you're actually on, if you don't mind just telling me what you want to talk about, I don't mind letting people on if they want to kind of chime in or call in or whatever. But if I don't know you, I don't really just let you on like that, because I don't know what you may or may not say, right? But we have to realize, like he said, the anomaly is if husbands ever went back to being husbands, and wives, or what's this, if men ever went back to their culture of doing what husbands do, and women in our diaspora ever went back to their culture of what wives do, he said then we would actually see a reverse in what's going on today. And so my and that's why I have this stance that I have when people say, how are you going to, how are we going to get our money back? How are we going to get reparations? When are they going to give us what we want? I'm not looking for them to give us what we want. Matter of fact, the most staunch conservative should agree with what I'm saying, because I don't believe that we should depend on you for anything. I believe if we're going to live, we should live by our culture. Right? And why do you try to call me backwards? Why do you try to call me evil when I'm trying to live? Right? Live, backwards, EVIL. Why is it that when I say my diaspora should take care of herself, you have a problem? You got to ask yourself that, right? If you had the staunchest of Republicans, and I'm not against anti-Republican or Democrat, I'm anti their system. Okay, so I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not an American, got sense enough to know it. Malcolm X taught me that. Right? So you got to figure out, why is it that you're still trying to conform? Why is it that you haven't thought about your brother or sister's business, and you're going to make sure on Amazon you go and get this, but you won't make sure that you find out your brother's business? See, this is what you got to start asking yourself. That's when you start to get reparations. You got to ask yourself why you're going to go to Walmart today and not once think to yourself, does anybody in your diaspora, give what you need, what you require, so that you might give them what they need. And it's that programming, right? It's that programming. And so in removing the leaven represents sin. Sin is anything that causes you to miss the mark. Today, we want to talk about stop living backwards, because a lot of people are living backwards. When you live backwards, it's evil. I don't know how to tell you. That's why I try to tell you, even when people want to get into the word of Yah, get into the Bible, all that stuff, I tell them, look, you got to recognize the Bible is not for everybody anyways. You act like everybody in the Bible was chilling with everybody else. And I'm not saying it was segregation, because anybody who wanted to be about this mindset, come on in. That's from Solomon's temple. You can find that. That's from before there was a such thing as an Israelite. You can find that. Right? The law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Everybody has the right to be into this, right? But you got to be in the law in order to have that right protected. And if you're not going to be what you're supposed to be, you're not supposed to be a part of what we're doing. That's the problem with a lot of marriages, things like that now, is everybody's marrying people who don't follow law, who don't feel like protecting rights and righteousness. And then you get into marriage with somebody you didn't realize by law you were supposed to be already qualified as an adult male, as an adult female by your community. Your community was supposed to say you were qualified to be a husband and a wife already. Your community was supposed to be say you're qualified to be a mother or father. Husbands who were already qualified before they walked down the aisle. We didn't walk down the aisle, but before we got married, marriage is sex, sex is marriage in our culture. So before there was a marriage ceremony, you were supposed to walk down. I'm sorry, you were supposed to make sure instead of walking down the aisle, you were supposed to have an inheritance already after 21 that you can go into and go out there and have your own business and thrive. So that when you found a wife, you found somebody who didn't submit to a man, but submitted to a mission. You were supposed to have a resume together, and so was she. And your family was supposed to be in on this, your community, and then you would actually get, instead of getting a license to be married, you would have gotten basically some paperwork that would have said you were engaged. And once you were engaged, she would be preparing herself for you, learning about you and all these different things, and getting herself ready to give up her chasteness because she was finally going to be protected by somebody who could become not just her spiritual husband only, which her father was, but her physical husband, and therefore become her spiritual father. And meanwhile, he was going to make sure he went to prepare a place. Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. A mansion is when he was going to leave his land he was on. He was going to go back to his father's land. He was going to keep building on his father's property. The add-on to his father's house is called a mansion. That's why you consider a mansion a big house today. Right? But we don't protect that at all because we like to live backwards. So what do? You go out on dates. Dates have expiration. If you go to the store and you're looking for a date on something, you're going to look for expiration. If you go on the calendar and you say, I want to find a date, then you're looking for a day that something's going to happen and therefore it's going to end after that day. Right? But you bring that mentality into an eternal process called marriage, because all of us should have been trained to be married to the Most High before we were looking for anybody else out here to be married to. Sex is marriage, marriage is sex, intimate, to know somebody. When you see the word know, knowledge, know is to talk about intimacy. How many people are trying to have intimacy? No, I want to date. You try to throw that rap out to somebody about intimacy, about love, about honor, about marriage, and some people will tell you straight up, oh no, that's too much, I ain't looking for all that. Well, then what's the point? You think that it's about doing whatever, and then whatever consequences come or don't come, you don't think about those, because we live backwards. We don't live for eternity. We're evil in time. You said, is it a rare thing? You said, it is rare that things happen that way. You'd be surprised how much it still happens. It's just rare in the places that we look for. We don't look for that. I mean, people do it in the United States of America all the time. I won't say all the time. I guess relatively speaking, you could say it's a heavy minority, but there's enough of it out there. Like, we forget, if there's 320 million people, whatever it is, even if only 3 million do it, 3 million is a lot. Like, if we were ever 3 million people strong, like, that's bigger than some nations are. We just not trying to become a nation, right? We live backwards. We live backwards. What is live backwards? Live is evil. Yeah, and once we know better, then it's time to do better, and at least bare minimum, make sure these babies know better. You said, why all of a sudden those who don't speak Christ saying pray for someone now? Like Damar was fake? Oh, you're talking about the cat from Baltimore. I mean, Buffalo. Okay. So can we explain Adam coming from Eve's rib? I'll try to do so in the context of living. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense even in marriage, as far as see, like, the context, not just only of the rib. We should look at the sacrifice that was done as far as how to live, because Eve comes from the rib, right? Or really, the rib, the word, it's become rib over time. It really initially just was the word side, right? Adam was all in one. Now, I don't know if I keep it a buck with y'all. I don't know if that means that Adam had female parts. It's not really disclosed. I don't really believe he did per se, but he had everything in him that was necessary to survive forever. The problem with it is that he had to realize he should not be alone. The word alone means all in one, right? So he was all in one, and that was problematic. And that speaks to our society today when a lot of us, hey, how you doing? I forget, is it Machia Tomate? I can't remember. But thanks for being on. I might have just totally missed. I know you've been on before. For some reason, I'm having a tough time remembering the pronunciation. But thanks for being on. Right, like, but the problem was that Adam was trying to do everything all in one. He was alone. How does he find this out? By the way, same thing we were just talking about. He had to be in his work before there was a wife. Before there was a woman, Adam had a work. And we don't look for brothers in a work. We don't try to give brothers a work. I didn't say a job, because a job is just a toil. I'm talking about a work, right? We don't look at brothers in their work. We don't support them in their work. We don't reward them for having to work. We don't say to the little boy that's out there hustling, we say, okay, look, maybe you don't need to move them drugs like that, but you can hustle as far, like, I'll promote you. You out here selling socks and you 7-8 years old. Let me promote it. While he's in his work, he has it in him. A lot of us in our diaspora, we have it in us, but we don't want to work for, the man or whatever. We don't want it. It's not in our DNA. It's not in our culture. It's not in our family. We should have a mission. We should have a purpose. We should have a vision. That's why wives are supposed to be in submission, not in submission. So before Adam had a wife, before Adam had access to a woman, before Adam had access to other human beings, right? At least that were living in the garden, he had a work. That's what Adam had. How you doing, Sage? If I didn't say so already, right? Adam had a work. He had to work. He was called to do something, and he was given instruction. Hey, dress the garden, keep it up. Name all the animals. You're going to have to be the example. Walk with me in the cool of the day. Let's have conversation. That was with the Holy Spirit, by the way. When you look up that word cool, right, it really means she was the cool. She was the wind. And I say she because in Hebrew, we always refer to the Holy Spirit as a she. And in heaven, there's neither male nor female. So don't get all those of you who are in your misogynistic viewpoint and don't even realize that it came from a Greek mindset when they changed the Bible. Holy Spirit is always a she in Hebrew, okay? Paleo Hebrew and even in modern Hebrew, he, even the fifth character of our Aleph Beit is she, all right? So just want to put that out there because I know there's somebody out there, she. I know they changed it in your Bible. It's okay, she. If you're going to speak the language, then you should know what they changed it from, okay? Right? But Adam had a work. And so he looks around at all the animals, right? See, we live backwards. That's why we're in this evil. Adam had to work first. Wives want job and credit and don't care about what your work is. See, I can't retire from my work. You want a brother that has something he can't ever retire from. The only thing that can separate me from my work, at least parts of my work, right, is going to be death. And even after death, there's still a work for me after this thing is gone. After this flesh is gone and I get a new glorified body, I still got to work. So you might as well be married to the work and not to the man. That's why, once again, you need to be in submission, not submission. You need to figure out if the man is carrying a mission that's worthy of you submitting to. Because if you're not going to submit to the mission, you'll never submit to the man. Problem is that you're trying to submit to a man without a mission. Any real husband, at least in our culture and the way we're raised and the way we raise our boys, we are raised with work. My son be trying to tell me that I'm excited and this and that, but I say, hey, where's my 20 minutes today? What does that mean? That means that if he gives me 20 minutes, right, he gets a donation from his dad. He gets an offering from his daddy, $5. If he give me 20 minutes, it'll show up in his Cash App. It'll show up in his little, altcoin or Bitcoin. It'll show up there, but he got to have work. He's got to see the value of work. He got to have vision. If you want to do the YouTube channel, that's great, son. When your stuff start falling behind, your subscribers are growing a little bit now, but you ain't posting anything, son. If you're going to be like Dad is one day, Dad posts all the time for hours a day. He gets up ready to post something. He studies before he goes to sleep. He wakes up early so he can study. He's doing this stuff. If you're going to follow this, and you got to be better than Dad, because you're going to keep this legacy going. And when you find a wife, she got to be submitted to the mission that's a family mission. See, so before you even know anything about marriage, before you know anything about sex, before you know anything about these feelings you're going to start getting, because he only 7 still, right? Or as he would say, he's in his 7s. He's not in his 10s, his 20s, his 30s, his 40s. He's in his 7s, about to be in his 8s. Praise you. Oh, I love that little boy. He's in his 7s right now. He's not 7. He's in his 7s, because he kept hearing us talk about being in your 30s and 40s. So now he's in his 7s. Praise ya. Right. So I'm like, while you in your 7s, you need to start developing yourself, because before you know it, you'll be 17. And you need to have a work. Before you know it, you'll be 30 years old. You'll be a rabbi. And this baptism that you get this time, he's been baptized already, because he comprehends what he needed to do. But when you get baptized this next time, so to speak, you're going to get baptized into leading people. And the same thing that dad does, you're going to do it in more excellence. But that means that, because dad ain't going to, I'm not going to stop moving, right? But anyways, so getting back to what I was talking about, right? Y'all get what I'm saying. So how you doing, spiritually gifted empress? So here we go to a place to where like people are mismanaging this. So when you talk about this Adam before Chava or Chavavach, or who you call Eve, Adam before there was an Eve, he had a work. Before there was an Eve, he knew who Yahweh was. Before there was an Eve, he already comprehended by the shut that the son who comes out the right family will be one with the Father, becomes our head, being destroyed, being led to the cross. He already knew something interesting was going to happen, even though he, in his mind, was thinking, well, how could this happen? He didn't even realize that he was going to be disobedient and need somebody else to make sure that his family, his children, would be able to come back into renewed relationship with the Most High, right? He knew the Holy Spirit. He knew the Father. He knew the Son. He knew these things. If you don't know what Barashat is, by the way, it's the actual first word of the Bible, or what y'all call Genesis, or what you call in beginning, or in the beginning. We don't have a word in Hebrew for the, but in beginning, that's what I'm talking about. If you don't know, if that sounds foreign to you, it might be because it is. But, he had a work. Matter of fact, he's told to name all the animals. And he names all the animals, and it was in his work that he realized the necessity of a wife, not the necessity of a woman. Right? See, we live backwards, and we live in evil. Livevil. See, you got this thing twisted. Work was not there, right? So that he would realize that he needed another person, or that he needed another woman. Or they needed a woman. He needed a wife. That's another level. Women are to be extremely respected. Matter of fact, when we say woman, when we say ashah or woman in our culture, we are saying that you are high and lifted up. Don't get it twisted. All women qualified in our culture, because you're supposed to be qualified to be who you are in our culture. You don't just get to say, well, you know what, I got a vagina, I'm therefore a woman. No, you could be a little girl masquerading as a woman in our culture. If you got to be trained correctly, just like these husbands got to be trained correctly. These men got to be trained. You have little boys in men's clothing. Like you have wolves in sheep's clothing, you got boys in men's clothing. That's why you get with them and you're upset. Why they still acting like little boys? Why they still pining for their mother? This and that. We would have trained them to not do that. You know, that was part of the training of a boy. Ages 0 to 3, you train him, he was a boy. And that means in the womb. Ages 0 to 3, right? Train him, he was a boy. Ages 4 to 6, guess what? You weaned him from his mother. He was already not drinking milk from his mother, but you're weaning him, giving him less time around her. Why? Because ages 7 to 9, whatever his daddy does, that's what he does. He is his father's apprentice. He is his father's apprentice. And so as he is his father's apprentice, what happens? Then his father is responsible for ages 10 to 12, making sure he gets extreme education. So he does what daddy does, and then he starts getting extreme education. You give your children education that y'all can't even remember by the time that they graduate college. They can't remember what they learned in 4th grade. But ages 10 to 12, we focus on who they are. Who are they supposed to be? Their dad does this. Their family will need this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So then at ages 13 to 15, you give them education on what it is to be an adult man in our culture. In your culture, if it's different, that's fine. I'm talking about our culture. You would train them to be an adult male. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right. And then from there, ages 16 to 18, you train them on what it is to be a husband. And therefore they have to know what a wife is. And then ages 19 to 21, you train them on what it is to be a father. And then after that, you give them their inheritance. Once they have been qualified on all those things, then you make sure that they're qualified. I mean, then you give them an inheritance and they have to go build upon what they've already been given and upon their family, so that when they find their wife, then they'll be prepared. As she prepares herself for him, he'll come back to his father's house, having his own stuff that he's already started. He can come back and connect all of those things coming together, so that when the husband and wife come together, his mother and father can be there to guide them through the beginning stages of life before they finally say, okay, go back out there on your own. See, this is our culture, but we're so busy going through everybody else's. See, this is how we should live, but we're trying to figure out why we're in evil. You've reversed live. You went from LIVE to EVIL. We reversed life. They reversed life on you. So you have in the garden, Adam is in his work given to him by his who? His father. Right? Said a lot of broken homes. I'm on. That's why we got to start teaching this, so there's less broken homes. And also, right, we got to start somewhere. And also, we got to make sure that there's father figures and mother figures out there who know this stuff, to make sure that we can step in where we can. Somebody got to be the example at some point. Somebody got to plant the seed. Somebody's got to water it so that Jehovah can give the increase. No seed planted means that no increase. No water given is no increase. Sure, there can be miraculous increase, but let's be honest, that's not the way natural law is designed. Right? And so Adam is living properly. He's in his work. And he's naming the animals. And in his work, that's when he finds the necessity for a wife. He says all the other animals have helpmates. Matter of fact, he didn't even say all the other animals. He just says all these things I've named, they have helpmates. He says, but I don't have one. Anything that anybody on my level, anybody that I can multiply with. I'm supposed to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue. And I'm the only human that can't do this thing. And the Most High says, you got it, Adam, because it's not righteous. It's not proper. It's not constitutional for you to be all in one or alone. You said, so am I saying that even without Eve, Adam's mission to multiply would have been unchanged by Elohim? What I'm saying is this, is that if Elohim wanted Adam to multiply by himself, then he would have had Adam multiply by himself. Right? Let's not change it to be able to try and be like, oh, well, he could have done whatever he wanted. You are absolutely right. He could have done whatever he wanted, whatever he was called to do within his own creation, because he can't go outside of his own law. So surely if the Most High wanted Adam to procreate within himself, he wouldn't have created Eve. Right? Because this is perfect. Up until sin enters, we're still dealing in perfection, correct? The Nun, 14th character of the Hebrew alphabet, we're still in perfection. So the Most High in his perfection clearly made it a point to say that Eve was necessary, or who you call Eve, Chava or Chavavach, she was necessary. Right? And that's part of the problem, is we keep trying to live backwards and going into evil, whether it's our intent or not. We can have righteous intent and still end up in evil if we're facing the wrong way. It's time for us to change the correct way. See, because we're not even, how do you think, if your mindset is that Eve was not necessary, then guess what you're going to do with your wife? Guess what you're going to do with your daughters? Guess what you're going to do with the women of your community? Guess what you're going to do with those sisters who keep telling you they don't feel protected? You are not going to make sure that you find value in them. We don't even realize when the Bible says stuff like she is the weaker vessel, the word weaker there is actually talking about that she is more expensive. She is more delicate. She is more fragile. She is worth more. Why is she worth more? She carries something that you don't carry. Now, obviously, you carry something you don't carry either, but it's saying she's more fragile. She's more expensive. She's more delicate. You pay a price. Matter of fact, in our culture, when you get married, you're supposed to give a dowry to her family. This is why Jacob works 7 years and then works 7 more years. Why? Because she's worth it. She's worth it. You said not realizing Eve is necessary is exactly how the world is living now. Exactly. They're living backwards. How do we even, like, we got, and I'm not trying to come at you. I'm just trying to get you to see, like, can we see how we need to reverse that thought? We say, well, if Eve hadn't been created, are you saying the Most High wouldn't have multiplied? Exactly, because everything around Adam multiplied, because everything around Adam had their own Eve. Adam's the only one that didn't have Eve. He's the only one that didn't have wife. He's the only one that wasn't having children. Right? So Adam could have been all in one. Isn't and watch this. The Most High says, see, we don't know that these words come from something else. The word good is God, good and God. God is a Germanic deity. So somebody put that in there later on, times of Charlemagne, stuff like that. You start seeing this word good and God and all this stuff be thrown in there. So God can be whatever you want. But it didn't say that it wouldn't have originally said that Elohim said that it's not good that he would be alone. It would actually say something along the lines of it was not constitutional. It was not lawful for him to be alone. The word alone is even a compound word, all in one. Yeah, we teach about language and things like that. Next semester is going to be starting April 10th. So we'll start having some stuff posted at the end of these lives soon where you guys can actually look and see what these, see what's going to be coming up and what you'd like to take, etc. Right. But he says it's not constitutional. They wouldn't even use the word good. See, once again, we're living backwards because we don't even know how to read. Like we read backwards. You read in left to right in somebody else's language instead of reading right to left in the language of the people who wrote it. Right? Like, how do you know what Moses meant and you don't know what Moses wrote? How do you know what Yashua meant and you don't know what Yashua spoke? How do you know that Badashat is in John 1:1 and Badashat is in Genesis 1:1 and you don't even know that Genesis is called Badashat and you don't know what it means? So when he's saying the word was with Yah, he's actually spelling out the word for y'all. Y'all don't even realize that the word Badashat, the first two characters are talking about the Son and the Father. So in beginning, in the word Badashat, which means in beginning, is literally a character that means the word or the Son. And the Son is next to the character that means the Father, Elohim. And the word was the Father, and the same was in beginning. In the word in beginning, which is the first word written in the Bible, which is the word of the first scroll or set of scrolls, he's literally just speaking language. He's speaking culture. He's speaking a tongue. A tongue is attached to a body. A body is a nation. Every nation has a tongue, but we are a nation without a tongue. Ooh. See, so we live backwards. And when you live backwards, Live becomes Evil. You said, so why didn't God correct himself about slavery rules? Well, first of all, once again, I don't worship God. And if that's a way of saying hello to you, because we should say hello to each other first and foremost, number one, whether you believe in him or not, or a God or not. I don't believe in God. I believe in Elohim. Number two, the word slavery is not even something that was in existence. That comes around more like around people who were slave owners or the slave Bible. You can see when that word slave started being written in. Number three, there wasn't slavery. It was indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is something that did happen. It could happen if somebody was in debt. It could happen if somebody was captured in war. Here's the thing that you're not talking about, though. Even when you're talking about that stuff, read it. Even read what it says. It says that, hey, like somebody can't even be in indentured servitude past 6 years, normally 1 to 2 years at the most. And if somebody's going to be in indentured servitude, you have to make sure you take care of their house. You got to take care of their parents. You have to teach them. You have to allow them to marry into your family if they're righteous and stuff like that, if they uphold law, all these different things. And you have to allow them to come out better than what they went in. That word slave isn't even equate to whatever we had in there. Now, there were people who came out of Kemet who were slave owners, right? There were Kemetic people that came out with Israelites. And so Israelites and Kemetic people had this false sense, 400 plus years, 20 years, 460 years, whatever it was, 420, I think, years of people being enslaved. And so they came out wanting to enslave one another. So there were laws created against people doing those things, and talks about, hey, you know what they would have done with the indentured servitude or a slave back then? You thought this was okay? Well, look, it's okay up to a certain point as far as this was indentured servitude, but you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't mistreat, you can't, and nobody want to talk about that fact, about what was the context of what was going on at the time. You were so busy living backwards and being an evil and trying to compare it to evil. They weren't dealing with chattel slavery, right? You just y'all throw that out. Like people just throw that out randomly. Well, why didn't they correct slavery? They didn't have to correct what they didn't have. Now they corrected to make sure that it didn't become slavery. But you don't know the culture. You said, why did the higher power allow me to become homeless? Well, I'm not homeless right now, that you're saying, but I've been homeless before. I don't have to work a 9 to 5, so I don't have to worry about fitting whatever it is that you think that I have to look like. But I'll say this, right? Like anybody who becomes anything, you have a right to be able to do righteousness and deal with the consequence. You also have the right to do evil and deal with the consequence. Right? Just like somebody who's on here who makes sure they protect our live session, they had the right to go ahead and mute you. Because this is our platform. Even though TikTok has allowed us to have this, we are allowed to be the stewards of it, right? So you have a right to act crazy and give a word and say that like you think that you saw me in a, first of all, you see me in a, I'm not trying to like do no bragging or anything like this, but this isn't like a regular car. Right now, it does need to be fixed up a little bit. I do have some cleaning to do on the inside for sure, but this ain't the, I'm not trying to like do no bragging on you, but at least know who you're talking to. Like the Most High has blessed my family, and now to make sure that we did certain things financially. We actually make way less than a lot of y'all make, but we don't have to deal with the stuff you do. We're on our way to land that we have, and we have 3 places or so just within ourselves that the Most High has given us access to be able to live and plant and do whatever we want, however we want, right? Because we're in our work. You're worried about your job, and to make yourself feel better, you try to make me feel bad because you think I'm homeless. Like this right here is not something that homeless people just throw on. The Most High has blessed us, but because it doesn't look like it's your culture, you make the assumption that we must be something. Just because I choose not to wear a suit and tie doesn't mean that this isn't worth more than some of your suit and ties. All right. Just like whatever people feel about slavery doesn't mean because you're trying to conflate and compare something to slavery doesn't mean that it is. And going back to what we were initially talking about, I haven't forgotten your question, sis. Just because you don't like what our culture says concerning marriage doesn't mean that's not what marriage is. Right? Like I've gotten to a place where the Most High has blessed my family and my marriage and my relationship and what we do around the world to where I don't have to bow down to your master. You got to do the 9 to 5 thing. And I pray that you come out of it. I had to do it too. And I pray at some point that you come together with like-minded people who would make sure that they would see your gift and help you to come out of that mindset that you have to do those things. I hope and pray that it happens for you, even though you seem to be frustrated with me and mad at me and trying to give malice and trying to use that homonym and all these different things. I would hope and pray at some point that you actually get to a place where somebody would see the value in what you give and allow you to be able to live in your vision and your dream and your mission if you have one. All right. Or if you feel that bad about somebody because they don't meet your standards of grooming or whatever, that you would just say, I'll move up. I'll do this. Right? But we praise y'all for you. And I'm serious. I'll be praying for you later. I hope that your life continues to get better. Right. And you continue to get to a place where you feel like but our goal is to make sure for example, I don't require this from anybody. You can say the Bible does, sure, but I don't require like a tithe from anybody. But if somebody, especially those who give tithes or offering to us, guess what we do? We teach, and we tell them about stuff as far as like how to make sure that they can become financially literate enough to live off of 10%. If you can give somebody 10% of what you make, then you should be able to live off of 10% yourself. And once again, I see a lot of people up here asking if they can come on or whatever. Easy Fix, Playboy, Jacob, whatever. If you want to tell me what you're about, then I can go ahead and maybe have you come on and we can have some conversation with you. But if I don't know what you stand for or I don't know anything about you, I can't just have you on here randomly because I don't know what you're about to do. If you want to set up something where you want to debate or something like that, I actually don't mind. We can set that up at some point. But if you're just coming in just to interrupt something that we got flowing, I can't necessarily allow that. And thank you, moderators, for what y'all do. Appreciate y'all. I see y'all out in here. Right. But going back, and thank you. I see you guys' comments, by the way. I appreciate y'all comments. It says the mindset, some people are lost in their minds. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to tell people is people are so busy living backwards. You don't know that live, L-I-V-E backwards is E-V-I-L. We're so busy living backwards that somebody who's living what you like, it's so weird that somebody would come on here talking about you're homeless and blah blah. Like, all you gotta do is look on YouTube and pay attention. Pay attention to last year, all the places that we were coming from. Pay attention to the people that are in here who we've talked to on the phone all the time and we've met in person and who show love one to another, right? From sea to shining sea, if you want to go there, right? Like, Yah is doing a great work. How you doing, Takwa? Right? People from different countries. We're trying to figure out how we're gonna get over there to England now, because so many people over there, people in Jamaica, starting to show strong and things like that. Like, we're trying to figure this thing out. Canada up in the house. Mexico starting to show a little bit of presence here or there. Ireland, we used to be huge in Ireland before they took down our first channel, right? But anyways, that's why you got to be strong in what this is. People who live backwards, they try to put you in the evil box, right? Live backwards is evil. You don't know how to LIVE. All you know how to do is EVIL. And you got to turn in the right direction so that you're not having this spiritual dyslexia where you're mistaking evil for live. Right? You got to come into the place. So going back to the garden and going back to Adam, he saw that it was not righteous for him to be all in one, to be alone. And a lot of us are feeling like we're alone, all in one. That's why we keep calling people and texting people and emailing people and saying, hey, we're doing this, and hey, there's a meetup in your area, and hey, people are coming together, and hey, what's your business? And these are what this is what this person's business does. This person's business does that. Why? Because it's not righteous for you. It's not. It's crazy for you to be walled off. You feel like you're the only person that wants to live in truth. Is that correct? Is that righteous? Is that constitutional? It is not lawful for you that you would be all in one, alone. How you doing, Misunderstood? And shalom to everybody, Bakwatap to everybody coming on, right? It's not righteous for you. It's not cool for you to go through spiritual attack after spiritual attack, psychological attack after psychological attack, pneumatical attack after pneumatical attack, physiological attack after physiological attack, and you by yourself. How you doing, Brother Terry? Right? Like, you shouldn't have to be by yourself. And so Adam was out there trying to do this all in one. And so finally, when he realizes he's alone, the Most High says it's not great for you to be all in one. So guess what I need to do? He said, I will make for you a help me. So once again, for the person who says, are you saying that Eve was necessary and Adam couldn't have been fruitful without Eve? Adam could have been fruitful in a sense, but he wouldn't have had no babies. Adam could have lived and lived well, but he could have walked with the Holy Spirit for the rest of his life. But it doesn't mean that he would have felt the same way as having a wife. Come on, right? Like you got to see that. So he says it's not great, and then see, it's not great for you to be alone. It's not righteous. So then he puts him to sleep. Once he realizes what's going on, then he allows him to have some rest. Now he gets some rest. Now let's put him to sleep. You said, what if the wife cheats? First of all, well, I don't know. If you talking about we talked about the qualifications of a wife. If you get a qualified wife in our culture, somebody who's actually been trained, this and that or whatever, not somebody just walks down the aisle, cheating normally don't happen. I'm gonna just put it like that. If somebody actually lives this thing out, cheating don't normally happen. But a wife could cheat, a husband could cheat, sure. Do you have stuff in place that when they cheat, you know what to do in holiness and righteousness to make sure you pick yourself up? And if you decide to not just forgive, but to build up trust again, do you know how to do that? But before we throw and disregard and be like, oh, because there are people that aren't wives that cheat. But I'm not talking about a wife according to your culture. See, in the culture you might be in, you talking about walking down the aisle and that makes you a wife. That don't make you no wife. That just means you can walk. You put on a white dress. That just means that you fell for the okie doke that makes people think that white's a color and that white means purity. White is the absence of color. White means bright, clear, see-through. She ain't walking through in no see-through dress. Therefore, she ain't walking through on no white dress. Right? Just hear the culture long enough. How you doing, Brother Brian? Just roll with the culture just for a little bit. I promise you roll with it, you'll start catching some things. The assumption is being made that we're speaking the same culture. We're not. That we're speaking the same tongue. I can speak the same words, and to you and your culture, it could mean something completely different. I appreciate the comments, right? I appreciate the questions. Just please, if you don't mind, let the foundation be laid a little bit. You said Adam had a wife before Eve. What happened to her? If you're going by the whole thing as far as something else, that's not something that was written by our culture. That's something that somebody wrote in from somebody else's culture later on. Some people want to go ahead and pick it up, whether you want to call that Lilith and things like that. By the way, the Bible actually tells you don't be into the whole Lilith doctrine. It tells you specifically that Lilith is a deity, a spirit that you should have nothing to do with. And so people keep trying to interject that in as if that's something that was ever brought by our culture or brought by the lost books or any of that. It was not. It is not. Now, if you want to get deeper into it, you actually, and we have this recorded in our Genesis Revisited series, if you want to look up that playlist on YouTube, if you actually want to get deeper into that, you should actually realize that there were men and women around, and Adam, when he's created, they were already around. There's men and women in the generation, and then Adam and Eve are in the generations. So he was created from the dust of the ground, and any kind of man that was around was not on his level. So therefore, any woman that was around was not able to be a helpmeet. So it wasn't just that Adam needed a woman because he was the only human being, right? Like Adam needed a woman because there was no human being on his level because he was a husband. If you were a husband, you can't look for a woman. That's the husband's problem. If you're a woman, if you're a wife, you can't look for a man. That's the wife's problem nowadays. How you doing, Austin? Right? You're looking for something that's not even on your level. Not that they're not human, not that you're better than human. I'm talking about that they are not on your level of thought. Husbands think different than men. This is a cultural difference. See, people are arguing because they're trying to live backwards. They're trying to get me to have a backwards conversation. Husbands don't think the way that men do. Every husband is a man in our culture, right? But every man in our culture is not a husband. That's the way it is. Yeah, all these men ain't husbands and all these women ain't wives. That's the way it is. And people don't want to have that conversation. Even the word husband in its basic sense, let's use some basic etymology. Husband is a house band. He binds the house together, the family. Husbandry is talking about what he would bind together even in growing food to make sure that his house is together, to make sure it's bound together. Not every man is thinking like that. Not every man has a vision to make sure. See, that's why, once again, we talked about this earlier. Wives are not supposed to be in submission. They are supposed to be in submission. You keep waiting for a wife to bow down to you when she's looking for a mission. A wife should not be looking for a man. That's why it doesn't say the wife who finds. Now, I'm not saying you won't run into a husband, but it doesn't say she who finds a husband. It says he who finds a wife. Why? Because you as a husband should already be in your work. So when you find a wife, you'll know. Even if she introduces herself, whatever. I'm saying when she is brought in front of you, you will be able to see, because of the mission that you follow, can she be able to support the mission? Y'all think about them hips. Y'all think about them dips. Y'all think about that bust size, right? Y'all thinking about will she lay down or is she a freak? Y'all thinking about does she look nice in the dress? I've seen some sisters that have had burns all over their face, and they're some of the greatest wives that I've seen an example of. Because they got the one woman in particular got the burns on her face because she saved her husband's children. You think that husband doesn't think that those burns are sexy every time he looks at her? Y'all can't handle stretch marks. You ain't ready for marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a bad conversation, right? If my wife has stretch marks, every stretch mark that she has is a sign that she was willing to be a sacrifice that my son would live. Right? Like, you can't handle stretch marks, bro. Brothers talking about they want multiple wives. You can't handle yourself. You can't handle the stretch mark. How you gonna handle multiple wives? You can't handle the work. What is your work? Where's the land that you've been given by your father to make sure that you'll uphold? Talking about you want to sign a prenup and you working at I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing. I'm just trying to get you to see the mindset. Hear what I'm saying, right? If you want your prenup, get your prenup, right? If you want to go through the state to get married, by the way, you should get private marriages done anyways. If you know how to do a contract, and y'all can make sure you hold yourself accountable in whatever way y'all want to. But real talk, you want a prenup, and your job is KFC. You ain't managing a KFC. You throwing catfish nuggets that you hoping to catfish in the fryer. Talking about you want a prenup. You are not this alpha male that you claim to be. You are not ready for the responsibility of a house. Yeah, marriage should be private. How you doing, Minister Nice? By the way, marriage should definitely be private, and you're not ready in private to take care of a family. You don't even have enough. You haven't even been taught. Holy Spirit, guide my tongue. You haven't even been taught, for real, how to make sure that you live as a private sovereign. You are a public citizen. Gonna give your marriage to the state, and then talking about you want to go ahead and make sure that y'all have and then you want to make sure that you have a prenup. You already gave your marriage to the state. You have your prenup don't even mean nothing. But you live backwards so much you don't even see evil. Live, Live, Evil. Audiobook of reading scripture. You know what? I thought about that for real. We might. There's so much stuff we finally just catching up on. Years behind. We growing so fast. And that's one of the reasons you gotta learn how to live. Like living catches up on you real quick, right? And so people don't want to live. They want to be in evil. People don't want to live. They want to be in evil. Like you're not ready for what you swear that you are. You Andrew Tate brethren out there, you are not ready for what Andrew Tate. First of all, Andrew Tate, it's been found out already. He was using these girls as sex workers. So he's a pimp. He told y'all that he was going to be the ultimate Muslim, and he was done with Christians because Christians don't even live right. By the way, I'm not a Christian, but that's what your boy told you. And here he was being a pimp. That's what y'all wanted. And he was giving y'all, him and his brother was showing y'all that they was pimps the whole time. If you knew what their father did, their father pimped out their mama. But you couldn't see it because you weren't living, you were in evil. Righteousness means right lawful standing. I don't try to go beat around the bush and do like he did, where he's supposed to be paying taxes, but he tries to find ways to finesse the system. No, like I'm not trying to do all that and then gonna be public and tell everybody that. I tell you straight up, I'm sovereign. Sovereignty is kingdom. You said, does Christian just mean to suffer for Christ? No, they come up with all types of stuff to tell you what Christian means now. It's to be like Christ, to suffer for Christ, to do that. Now, you should suffer for Christ. I don't even have a problem with the word Christ or Christos, right? The word Christian, though, is Christianos. Christian, that's where you get Christian, right? It's Christianos. And that actually was something that people looked down upon back when it originally came out because they mixed and matched so many different religions that even people that weren't followers of the way or in the kingdom or Yastel or grabbed into Israel, etc. They didn't. They thought that they were foolish. They thought they were dumb. Yeah, some people would even define it today as the smeared ones. There's other people that would, I forget, right. I forget, there's another one I just heard recently. I'm not sure, I haven't been able to check it, verify it, but yeah, like there's, so a Christian is different. But today, once again, if you live in evil, like think about this. All it took, this is how quick it took. All it took was 300 years for people to become so Christian. Yeah, some people, yeah, Cretans, thank you. That's another one. Yeah, that's another way some people define it, right? Also, watch this. It took 300 years, 300 and about 20, 25, 325 years. Well, I guess you said to say a little under 300 because when Christ actually would have died. So, like, all it took was about around, like, just let's just say 300 round up. And all it took was about 300 years for Christianity to outlaw the name of their Christ. and we're supposed to be married unto him. He's in his work. He died for us, and he allowed us as he allowed us to come out of side and was so obedient to us and live, right? That he sacrificed himself to cover anything that we were going to go through, so we could continue to prepare ourselves, so we can come back for a assembly that is spotless and without wrinkle, right? Without blemish. And all it took was about 300 years for somebody to do so much mixing and matching that you don't even care about his name that much. And then imagine what happened 300 years after that. By the time you hit the 600s, what do you think people were doing? Because they were afraid they would be killed for using his name. And still today, people are using the false name. So if that happened in 300 years, imagine 300 years after that. Now imagine if that happens in 300 years, imagine 1700. And people would rather be Christian than be what the word says. Matter of fact, even in your Bible, the word, at least originally, even in the 1611 King James Version, it's only mentioned twice. And both times, technically, is mentioned kind of like in jest, or mentioned in a manner that's saying, like, you need to get yourself together. It took that. Oh, it only took 300. Are you not just coming out of 400 years of slavery? Imagine what you could do. Go when you get a chance, go to DC. And when you go to DC, go to the Bible Museum and look up the slave Bible. They have them there for you to look at. Matter of fact, go to Thomas Jefferson's house in Virginia, Monticello. He has some there for you to look at. And he used to rip out pages in the slave Bible. And the slave Bible was something they did specifically to make sure people would read it and not know what was going on in it. Matter of fact, if you want to realize what happened, if you want to know what happened with a lot of these slave rebellions, a lot of them happened because people got their hands on real Bibles. Did you know that? You said when you label yourself, you put yourself, well, I label myself great. I don't put myself in a prison. I label myself to be the Most High. I don't feel like that puts me in prison. I label myself to be somebody who's a king. Matter of fact, I don't label myself. I allow him to label me, and I simply lift up the label, right? That's somebody else's cultural thing. Don't label yourself. Don't do that. Don't put yourself. No. Like, I'm accountable for everything I say. I'm not coming against you. Hopefully you don't take it that way, right? I'm just trying to show you, like, there's some stuff we're doing that's in reverse. Remember, if I take the word live and I reverse it, it's evil. And so you'll think you're living, but all you're just facing the wrong direction. So yeah, you should be living this way, but when you live the opposite way, you actually are going into some stuff you shouldn't. Yeah, the founding fathers weren't even Christian. They were deists. Exactly. They believed that they themselves could become gods. Gods, deities, deists. Heck, they thought they were modern Netchers. That's why George Washington has that obelisk, right? He's supposed to be the modern day Osiris, and on top of the Congress building is the everything that y'all talked about from September 7th a couple of years ago. January 6th, January 7th, January 6th, whatever it was, 2021, right? And y'all had that whole thing where they marched right on the Capitol, or you go to that building. On top, there's a goddess Columbia, right? The Greek deity Columbia. That's the modern Isis. And Osiris is George Washington on the ground. That's why he's got the obelisk sticking up, because his body was ripped apart and she couldn't find his phallus. So Isis made the obelisk a mock penis, or a dildo, y'all will call it, and she rode on it while he was dead, necrophilia, and then she became pregnant with Heru. And so anybody that comes out of Congress, that's Heru. Like, we don't even see what's going on. Amen. You said you're on your way to sovereignty. I see you, Minister Nice. And how you doing, good sister? How both of y'all doing? You said, do I know much about the indigenous culture in Australia? I can't say I know anywhere near as much as I know about the indigenous cultures of Africa, or the indigenous cultures of the Americas, because that's where my people are mainly from. Both sides of my family are from both those places. But as far as Australia, I do know some of the stuff that was done to them. I do know some of the structures that have been around that they'll say 10,000 years, which, by the way, doesn't bother me at all in my belief system, because that doesn't actually go against the Bible. But people, once again, they're coming from the wrong culture, so they don't comprehend how time works, and how long people existed and all those things. But yeah, I think it's necessary that we would know that culture, and so there's certain things I don't say about them as of now because I don't know all the stuff. Like I do know that there was Blockimento in Brazil. There was like a version of it that was over in Australia. Same thing, basically, where you married into people and had certain people keep certain figures, but you made sure you got rid of their color. Definitely made sure that you killed off hundreds of tribes. To where there's very few people that actually speak the actual language. Different things as far as belief system, different structures that existed, different language that was there. Matter of fact, if you get into Pangea, you'll realize that the Melanesian, the Polynesian, the Austronesian, all that kind of coming from the same people, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of that is hidden too. All right, you be careful out there, Utensil Music. Thanks for being on as always. Appreciate you. So, but we have to realize those things. Right? Like you have to realize that a lot of those people, like, for example, why is it that Toussaint Louverture joined the Haitian Revolution? I'm not saying that there wasn't anything that was done with Vodou or what we now know as voodoo, which was a mixing and matching of a bunch of religions anyways. That's why you call it voodoo and not Vodou. Vodou is West African, what it originally was. Some people who did Vodou came, and then other people all kind of mixed their stuff under Vodou, kind of like what Christianity does. And they used it to be able to go ahead and, march against Haitians and things like that. But Toussaint Louverture, who is the one who we give credit for leading the whole thing. Do you know who that is? Do you know what made him want to join? He read the Bible and he said, if Moses did that for his people, why can't I do that for mine? Yeah, we just talked about that yesterday. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and all that, right? Proverbs chapter 1. And we talked about verse 3, you got to have wisdom and all that stuff. Verse 7, verse 2, you got to have wisdom, things like that. Verse 3, you should at least listen to wisdom and have equity. And then you keep going on, and then you get to verse 8, where he talks about that the husband should be able to give instruction, and the father should give instruction, the mother should lay down the law. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of stuff that we're all over the place in, and we're living backwards. And when we live backwards, that's evil. LIVE backwards is EVIL. How you doing, big brother TJ? Right. Like, by the way, did you not think about the fact that Nat Turner was a pastor who was reading the slave Bible, never knew the whole Bible, right? Nat Turner all of a sudden gets his hands on an actual Bible and reads things about Moses, and that's why Nat Turner starts a slave rebellion. See, we into this whole Crusades thing where Christianity messed up and allowed that to be something that they use to be able to take other people's stuff from them, right? There's a lot of your people who found out. What about Olaudach Equiano? Do you know who that is? Olaudach Equiano? Do you know who that is? See, like Olaudach Equiano, you're so busy living backwards that you don't even see that there were a lot of people living in the direction we're telling you. He was somebody who was taken as a slave from either Sierra Leone or Nigeria. I think it's Nigeria, or I think it's Sierra Leone. I could be wrong, but he's taken from one of those places, and he doesn't really remember his childhood. He's taken while he's young, and so he comes over, and he becomes a slave. Ends up on a slave ship, like being a sailor, but ends up basically paying for his own freedom. Gets his own place. He keeps hearing people say, read this Bible, read this Bible, read this Bible. He's kind of like a lot of us. Yeah, whatever. All right. Finally, one day he sits down and reads it, and he starts having flashbacks to his childhood. We don't want to talk about these people. These people are real. We're so busy living backwards. We're living in evil and thinking that who we are is evil rather than realizing that who we are is righteous. Right? And so he says what? If you read his book, he goes, man, I started having flashbacks. He said, I realized, oh, wait a minute. I remembered that I was a prince when I was young. So he remembered he was royalty. Then he said, as he read it, he kept looking at the customs traditions they were talking about. He said, wait a minute. This stuff has relevance to me. While y'all say it's Old Testament nonsense, because there's no such thing as Old and New Testament. Somebody wrote that in too. But he said, well, y'all say there's Old Testament. He said, for me, this is something that we did. We did these things. We upheld these customs and traditions still to this till, to this day, basically, even though I'm not there. Like, I grew up with this. And he realized, he comes to the conclusion, he says, you know what? Wow. Even the language is, he says, I'm an Israelite. This is written, autobiography. Olaudach Equiano. I don't know if I'm even spelling, Olaudah, last name Equiano, Equiuiano. He wrote an autobiography. I didn't write it. No one else wrote it. He wrote it. And he said, oh, I've been this. I just didn't know who I was. That's why to remember is important. You were once a member of something, you were cut off from it, you call that dismembered. If all my digits are here and something happens to one of my digits, you would say it was dismembered. So what do? We put it on ice. We got to stop it from bleeding and do all this stuff. We got to treat it, we got to wrap it, we got to make sure we put the finger in ice, and then we make sure that we head over to the hospital. And then what are they going to do? They're going to remember it. And I got to go through some healing. I got to go through some position stuff. I got to wait for them. I got to go through some physical training, some physical therapy. But once I finish getting through, it might not move even the same it used to, but it's connected again. We're going through the same thing in this body. Yeah, Equiano, Avda, exactly. Yeah, he was Avda, right? He was Hebrew, right? Like, these are things that are there. What about the fact that you guys never thought about something called Sephardic Jews? You know about, and by the way, Jew, the letter J didn't even exist. So you really be talking about Yehavada'in, and not all the tribes are even Yehavada'in. So just because you're Israel doesn't even mean you're a Jew. You ever thought about that? Did anybody ever teach you that? You see, we're so busy living backwards that we're living in evil. Don't get it twisted. You can be an Israelite and still not be a Jew. Did you know that? Jews were Yehavada'in, out of the tribe of Yehavadah. Yehavadah is what you now call the tribe of Judah. And whenever you see beloved in scripture, it's actually talking to Judah, because David, his name means beloved. So when it'll say beloved, it's actually speaking to a particular people. You don't even realize that, hey, remember, there were 12 tribes. 11 of the tribes went up north for a second. One of the tribes stayed down. They started mistreating the Levites. And so some of the Levites came back. So you kind of had 1.5 up here and 10.5 up there. And then you had eventually the Benjamites said, this ain't right either. And they left. And so you had like 2.5 down here and 9.5 up there. And those people who mix together in Judah are known as Jews, or Yehavada are known as Yehavada'im. And the other 9.5 left. Now, at the end of the day, we're still all Israel. But I'm just saying, we don't even recognize how tribes work. If there's 12 tribes, are there not 12 tribes? And there should have never really been 2 kingdoms. It was that Judah was wilding out. So we should take responsibility for we was wilding out. But we don't even know there's something called Sephardic Jews. You heard of Ashkenazi, you've heard of Khazarian. What is a Sephardic Jew? If you want to use that term, what is a Sephardic Jew? Who is that? Have you done your research? Do you know what they look like? I'm not talking about what they said they look like. That should be enough, but a lot of people don't want to do that. So what did other people say they look like? They were in Spain. They were in West Africa. They were in the land of Canaan. They were at the Sea of Reeds. They were even near the Red Sea, if you like that, because the Red Sea is a misinterpretation. It was actually the Sea of Reeds. But nevertheless, if you want that, they were there too. They were even in Portugal. They even end up in St. Thomas. They even end up in America. They end up in Brazil. They end up in England. Okay, so we know who these people are, but they describe, not us, the people who oppressed us, who the first time that you were sold into slavery, they called you a Negro. They called you negro, not just because in Spanish it means black. You must understand that negro is one of the oldest West African terms that's out for us, that we had for ourselves. And yes, they could have called you Moor, but Moor doesn't always mean what we think it is either. We try to label all Moors as one nation. Not all, Moors were not all one nation, just like all black folk aren't one nation, and all, et cetera, right? Like all Africans aren't one nation. So Moor, yes, I'm a Moor, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm from Morocco. It doesn't mean that I'm from Spain or my people are there, right? Moor is not a tongue, by the way. You know how they do that? Well, is black a tongue? Is black a tongue? Well, neither is Moor, bro. Like, you're so busy trying to separate and trying to be right. Stop being right. Be righteous for a second. What language do they speak Moor in? If you want to say Morocco, okay, are all Moors from Morocco? Or did they say, hey, all of y'all look like people from Morocco, so we'll call you all Moors, including even there's something in your dictionaries called blackamoor. Because they just thought if you were black, you were a Moor. That's why they would call natives over here, they'll call them Moors too. It doesn't mean that every native was from Morocco, even though some were, or at least married into people that were from there. Oh, wow, thank you for the love. I never seen, or I think I saw that for the first time the other day, the lightning. Appreciate it. And how you doing, Sister Kelly, if I didn't say so already? And if Sister Star is watching as well, if the whole family's watching, and praise y'all, right? How you doing, Detailing Collins? Yeah, Othello was supposed to be a story based off of a blackamoor, right? Oh, hey, how you doing, Sister Michelle? And tell your husband I said hello. I tried to reach out the other day. I know you said he's busy. Excuse me. So we don't comprehend what's going on. We don't recognize and realize like who you are. So a Sephardic Jew is not the same as a Khazarian. Look up the empire of the Khazar Empire. It ain't where you think it would be, right? And Ashkenazi, look at where they come from. And by the way, look in your Bible for where the Ashkenazi are. They are from the tribe of Japheth. That's why they can't be Jews. They have to be Jewish, right? It is considered to be something that's bad to call somebody a Jew, but you're supposed to call them Jewish. Why is that? I mean, if you're blue, or if somebody is blue, I should be able to say you're blue. But if I say you're bluish, I'm saying you're kind of sort of blue because you ain't really blue, right? Don't forget, in modern Kemet that y'all call Egypt, the people who you say are Israelites, y'all say that they're Ashkenazis over there. Now they're the Israelites. Well, when they said that we want Egypt to recognize us as a nation, the prime minister of Egypt, who's not even Kemetic, he's not even black, right? As you would call it, he's what you would now call today Arabic, even though Arabic doesn't mean what you think it means either. And what happened? He said, "Oh no, we can't go ahead and say you guys are Israel." They said, "Well, why not?" They thought because he was trying to say modern thing or this and that, or we're not going to give you this, or he said y'all ain't the chosen people, because this is what came out of his mouth. He said when you left, you were black. He said now that you come back, you're white. And people think that we're making this stuff up. I didn't say that. The burden of proof is not on me, it's on those that came before me. I didn't call them out for being white. I didn't tell them that they needed to be known as Israel. But other countries were like, other people who were educated said, no, like we know what y'all look like. Matter of fact, you can look up on YouTube, TikTok, whatever. We have it now. You got to scroll some on our TikTok pages, but look up on YouTube one day and look for videos of Israelites in the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, the late 1800s. Look for videos of what they look like. And you tell me if they look like the people that are there today. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that some of them couldn't have lived there, but what I'm saying is you're not going to find them. Now, you see the people that are there in late 1940s, they look a little different. But look it up. And when you look it up and you see that they don't look like what you think they're supposed to look like, then you got to ask yourself who they look like. The Spanish and the Portuguese, they knew what we looked like. They called us Sephardic Jews. They didn't even call us Jews because the letter J didn't exist yet. But today you would say Sephardic Jews, right? And these people, they said that these people were tall, they were swarthy, that means dark, and ruddy. Some would even say dark and hairy. They said they had locks. They said that they wore black hoodies. They forced them to wear the black hoodies. But they said they wore black hoodies. They said that they were very high-strung and sexually attracted to women, which was interesting to them because where they came from, men went back and forth. And they were supposed to look feminine. But in our culture, we were very much so into our wives. And if we were going to make wives of their women, we were dangerous. Matter of fact, they said not only did they have hoodies, they said that they were swarthy, dark, They said they wore hoodies. They said that they would play music on the street corners, and they said there would be people putting poetry over the music. That sound familiar to you? Even if they don't got an instrument, if this is the instrument, you hear somebody and somebody rhyme over it. Sound familiar? Sound just a little familiar? You can go and look at these places, especially in Portugal to this day. You can go visit and look at these places. They're still up. You could even go over there. They said that they had them living in places called ghettos. You thought the ghettos were just something that was modern terminology. Some of y'all thought the ghettos were just for Jewish people, but you didn't think about the fact that they forced them into ghettos back then. And then they started forcing them into Christianity. Right? They started forcing them into Christianity. And what you call the Spanish Inquisition, which was really just the Roman Catholic Inquisition. And anybody who finally, they even had torture devices that they used for these. Now, there were people who had converted, by the way. So you'll find that there are mostly swarthy, dark-skinned black folk, right, who they tell you look like people of West Africa. That's why they eventually called Negro land in Africa, because they went over there looking for Negroes. They considered looked like these people were from the same tribe. That's why on a map it tells you that they found people in Nigeria and in Ghana and on the slave coast, and they label these places on there. They say the further south, they say these are the scattered ones, the scattered Israelites, and they say up top, they say that's the kingdom of Judah. You can look at this map by just Googling it real quick, or you can look at this map by going to the Library of Congress, where they hold on to the map. You can go to their website and look it up. They hold on to the map to make sure that it's something you can still look at. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. I think I've been missing some, right? This is you. But they got you living so much in reverse that you think it's evil for somebody to say that. You think you need to cancel Kanye if he says that. And you need to cancel Kyrie if he says that. And you need to cancel anybody who's out here saying something like that. The reality is you can't even talk about the Ethiopian. We're talking about that they are the bits, the house of Israel as well, or they try to call them now beta, because they try to say beta means house. No, beta is because they're trying to tell you that Israel is alpha, and then the Cushitic people, who are still Israel mixed with Israelite blood, right? They're trying to say, oh no, those people, those are beta. They're not as powerful as you. They try to do the same thing with my tribe over on the West African side. Y'all are just beta. No, we have more E1B1A blood than you do. We have more. In Largos, there's more of us there than there are of you. This is true. So when you're sitting up there and you're telling me this stuff, you don't want to admit that I am the missing ingredient, because my pineal gland has more of what it is than you do. That means my pituitary gland gives more than what yours does, which means my hypothalamus gives more than what you do. If that's all you're basing it on. Now, don't forget, not all skin folk is kinfolk. Don't forget Hebrews 9:6. Not all Israel is Israel. So don't trip and get so big-headed that you forget you still got to make sure that you're righteous, that you have right lawful standing. But don't trip. If we're gonna make this only about physical, but then you can't talk to me about it. Thank you, Sister Patricia. How you doing? I'm just saying, if you want to make this about what you try to make this eugenics thing that was created by the cousin of Charles Darwin, who was trying to teach y'all racism. That's why Darwin's book is literally called what is it called again? I always mess this up. His book is called The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Survival of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life, written in 1859, and it was pushed out by royal societies. It says it in the parentheses, by royal societies, by geological societies. That's what they were teaching in geology. And it was also pushed by those who are of Linnaean doctrine. Carl Linnaeus is the person that said that animals had races, competition against each other, and then tried to say y'all came from different animals, and that's why y'all have races. So when y'all tell me there's the human race, I'm not in a competition with any other human being, nor I'm in a competition with any animal. That's not my culture. So when you try to say there's only one race, the human race, you don't get it. Race means competition. And why does competition have to be based off of color? Because y'all, through evolution, try to tell people that it was best that certain people could be in competition against others. That's where that comes from. You can try to fix it however you want, but I know enough about the story, our story, and his story to be able to tell you the truth. I don't have to live backwards anymore. That's evil. Live backwards is evil. Yeah, how you doing, Jonathan? Suggestion on find out. I mean, for real, I don't worry about the blood DNA stuff. For real, like learn your people. Even if you can't go name by name, learn enough about your people, you'll pretty much be able to find out who you are. There's different ways of doing that, and I don't know if I have enough time to even like. In all honesty, I don't know if I have all the technological terms and things like that. Like maybe we could have an offline discussion on how at least how to get started in places that you could pay that's worth it, or even I don't know if they allow you to do it anymore ever since COVID, but they even if you wanted to go to like some of these Mormon temples out here, a lot of these Mormon temples, they got your paperwork. So you can find out a lot about the story of your family and where you come from just by going there, which speaks a lot about Mormonism, stuff that they don't want you to know. Right. But we live so backwards that we think it's evil to talk about this stuff. People think that because I would speak on race, I'm wrong. But see, in your culture, you think that race means what type of human you are. I comprehend that race is a competition, and if it's a false equivalency, right? If that's what it is, let's just make it real. If your conversation about race comes out of false equivalency, then guess what? Then your standard of competition is false. And so you don't understand how you carry a lie and become comfortable with it. Just tell the truth. Because a lot of people lie. I used to be real talk. This is why I'm so passionate about truth. Real talk. I've said this before. I used to be a great liar. I don't like to admit it, but I mean, I'm just gonna keep it a buck. Some people can't keep it a buck. Like real talk. I used to be a great liar. And I used to just do it for the sake of it. I just like the fact that I could psychologically do some things to make people believe things. I'm just gonna keep it a buck. That's why I always tell y'all to study. Who knows if my flesh ever jumps into something and wants to be right so much that I just keep telling y'all lie after lie after lie. So study what I say. Don't trust it just because you like how I present something or you like that I'm the antithesis of something or whatever. Like study what I say. You never know who could be lying to you. Real talk, you never know. Matter of fact, I could be lying to you by accident because it just could be ignorance that I'm speaking from. I had to correct the other day when I was talking about the girl in Columbine who was shot. That's what I heard my whole life. One of y'all presented me some information. I was like, oh, well, everything about the story was true, but she just never was shot. So it's actually just as powerful, if not more powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we all are learning every day. I'm not perfect. I'm striving for perfection though. And that's why I go down certain guidelines. See, striving for perfection means I have to LIVE. But when I reverse it to try and say, well, I can do whatever I want, then guess what? EVIL. I reversed that thing. A lot of people are reverse living and are trying to figure out why your life is painted in evil. If I throw you in the river, right? If I throw you in the river and you get completely submerged, when you come out the river, are you still wet? Right? And this is the problem that we have. Like some people been in the river their whole life, and now you just got out, acting like you out the river. No, you still wet. Like you don't know what it is to be dry yet. Right? You need the sun to hit you a little bit. You might need a towel. If it's cold outside, we need to do some things to you. You know, like you got to change. Ariel, you can't be part of that world until you get some legs up on you and you stop, having some kind of guilt response. You know what I'm saying? Like you so busy trying to be part of that world and trying to say I got this together, but you still, just yesterday, you were still busting heads. You were still cracking skulls. You were still beating people to the white meat show. You don't even know that that comes from racism too. That comes from chattel slavery, where they taught, their father in modern psychology taught that if you beat somebody and you start seeing white meat on them, it means that you're turning them into somebody who thinks better. Because the reason why they're black is because they're stupid, they're dumb, they're slow, they don't have mental health together. So just because you came into some knowledge yesterday, that's why Paul said, look, don't put no babe in no position. Somebody just started worshiping the Most High yesterday, and now you're talking about that you're ready to preach to thousands. Like, you ain't ready to preach. I don't care if you're the best Christian preacher to ever exist. Even Paul had to sit it down. He had to shut it down for a minute. He had to be blinded. He had to be accepted. And people don't want to be accepted. You live different. You live evil. You say, I don't have to be accepted by nobody. Yeah, you do. There's a chain of command. You said all religions are pagan. Well, all religions can't be pagan because pagan is pagan. Now, if you want to say, right, the word religion, by the way, is religion, a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So people that are religious or do the same thing in Buddhism don't always do the same thing as pagan, because pagan is not a catch-all. That's what people have created it to be or tried to redo it, but that's not correct. Right? In our culture, biblical culture, right? In your culture that you say you live by, peep game. Why is it that you got preachers, or sorry, why is it that you got rabbis that are 15 years old, 10 years old, 7-year-old pastors? You're not supposed to be a rabbi till you're 30. Amen. You got to be accepted by somebody. That's the way it works. Yeshua had to be baptized by John the Baptist. Oh, yes, he did. You forgot? Y'all forgot that? Why you got a 7-year-old pastor? I didn't say he can't speak every once in a while. I didn't say he can't answer questions. But why is he 7? If you say you believe it, this is when I got issues. Right? Now you can say, oh, well, so and so was a prophet. Yeah, he wasn't a rabbi, and he still had to report to somebody, didn't he? Even the man that would end up dying, that he had to tell was going to die, he still had to report. He still had to be taught. Hufashai still had to listen to his mom and his daddy, even if you don't talk about his adopted daddy. Because there's order, there's structure. And a lot of people don't want order. They don't want structure. Right? How about Isaiah 43:1, right? Who shall believe our report? You said Hosea 4:6, wake up, bro. In what sense am I asleep? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. The word knowledge meaning intimacy. And it's not because you haven't been presented knowledge, it's because you have rejected knowledge. So what knowledge am I rejecting? You got to know your word for yourself, because people are gonna try to hit you with all types of stuff, right? Like, don't make the assumption that like, here's the problem. You're making an assumption that I'm Christian. You're making an assumption that I worship Jesus. You're making an assumption that I worship God. You're making an assumption that I don't teach this stuff. You're making an assumption I don't know the language. You're making the assumption that I don't live this. You're making the assumption that I don't have time to study. This is why I do what I do. I made a decision a long time ago in my life that I would release myself from the bonds of being enslaved to a 9 to 5. I'm not speaking it ill against y'all who might have a 9 to 5. I'm just trying to tell y'all, for me, that's not what I called to do. My whole life, outside of the military, and even inside the military, had some problems for real, to be honest with you. I tried and went to all this stuff. I tried to get as many 9 to 5s. I worked so many jobs that I was overqualified for, and all this stuff. All these jobs, people would tell me this great stuff. They'd have me there for a couple of weeks. They'd have me train somebody. Then that person I trained would take the job. I'd be out. And I used to think it was bad, this and that, or whatever. It's because I was never called to it. right? I was never called to that. It's not because I didn't want the discipline. It's not because I didn't want to take care of my family. Even with that, I would work 5 jobs if necessary, make sure that my family was straight and eating. And if it meant that I didn't eat, they were going to eat. If it meant that I had to be on the street, they was going to be inside warm. So, but people make the mistake, right? Like people make the mistake of the assumption, right? That you're supposed to be like everybody else. See, and that can be evil because there's no such thing as equality. Amen. Yeah, I really do believe that now, Sister Nadine. You know, but see, you believe in equality. How many people are equal to you? Amen. You in your work, I see you. How many people are equal to you? Could that be your problem? You living backwards. Living backwards, Live backwards is EVIL. Question: how many people are equal to you? See, this is a serious question. Not one. No, not one. Right? Nobody's ever had your DNA. They have some of your DNA, but you don't share 100% DNA with anybody. Nobody's ever had your fingerprints. Nobody's ever had your exact frequency of voice. Right? And see, you were so busy trying to be equal, living backwards, that you have problems because you think everybody should think equal like you. So you're in a relationship and your spouse does something wrong in your eyes, and you think in your mind, and they might have done something wrong, period, but they do something wrong, and in your mind you think they did it to hurt you, because if you were in their position, you would have done that to hurt them. Problem is, though, they don't think like you. So now you're having an evil conversation instead of a conversation that might live. Amen. Nobody, I like that. Nobody is my equal. Preach that thing, Minister Nice, right? You just so you're dealing a lot of times. Sometimes we throw stuff out, like we just throw out mental health. We just throw out narcissism because we don't like somebody. But what if they just don't think like you? Like here's something that y'all might not know. What's his name? Leonardo da Vinci. Did you know that Leonardo da Vinci, he was dyslexic? Now, I don't even mean it. He was extremely dyslexic. But people took out time to figure out what he was saying. And we don't do that with our own babies. We just be like, they're dyslexic, they have ADHD. Oh my goodness, they'll never be able to do this, and we have to do this and blah. Do you know Leonardo da Vinci was extremely dyslexic to the point to where, watch this, if you wanted to read all the stuff that you ever read about from Leonardo da Vinci, you had to put everything that he ever wrote out up to a mirror because he wrote everything backwards. He could see what you wrote, but he couldn't write how you wrote. It wasn't in him. But y'all consider him to be a genius. He wasn't equal, though. And those who took time out to stop like belittling him and actually say, let me figure out what he's doing. And they figured out how to just, okay, I can't read it backwards, but what I can do is I can put it up to a mirror. Oh, it makes sense. They took extra time out to stop saying that because it doesn't make sense to me, if I would just put it up in something that makes sense to him, I might be able to see what he's talking about. And so what about being bipolar? Well, technically everybody's bipolar. Did you know that? I know what they mean by bipolar, but technically everybody's bipolar. Bipolar, literally, you have electronic, you have electrical currency that goes through. You have positive, you have negative. So technically everybody's bipolar. We need to figure out if there's stuff going on with serotonin, if there's stuff going on with melatonin. We need to figure out, if stuff's going on with the hypothalamus, if something's going on with the pituitary gland, if you got stuff that's going on, that you're just not eating. Like, for example, if you're missing iron or potassium, things like that out of your diet, which a lot of people live in places where it doesn't naturally grow, and especially since you don't eat off the earth and grow your own food, a lot of times you're not getting this anyways, because people don't know how to make sure that they are planting crops correctly and make sure they rotate them so that you get all of these things and everything that you eat. So, you can have somebody that's talking about you're bipolar, and it's just because you don't eat right, and then you don't think right, and then when you do try to express thought, and then try to eat on top of it correctly, everybody tell you you're crazy. And you go to doctors, they say, yeah, that doesn't make any sense in our Western theology that they want to call, their what they are become practitioners over. You said he wrote to avoid persecution by the church. Okay, we can say he wrote to do that too. However you want to put it, he wrote in a manner in which he had to write in a manner in which, if you wanted to comprehend what he was saying, you had to comprehend what he was writing, whichever argument we want to take it to. Right. And what I'm saying is that in Hebrew characters, we write backwards anyways, according to them, but in our culture, it's correct. Right. In our culture, we say that a wife is qualified for marriage and a woman is not. In somebody else's culture, you say a woman is qualified to be a wife, and sometimes you'll say a man is qualified to be a wife. That's your culture. That's cool if that's what you uphold. I don't have a heaven to hell to put you in. If that's what y'all do, that's what y'all do. But it doesn't have to be what I do. And it should be respected. How I live should be respected. If somebody can do evil and it be respected, why can't how I live be respected? Oh, they say Beethoven. Yeah, Beethoven was known as a little Negro. He also was said to have Negroid features. Right? I don't know if he was dark skinned per se, but there's something to that. We can't put our foot on it a whole bunch. I have heard about Leonardo possibly being, out there being, black or more, etc. I don't know about that for sure. It seems like there's a little smoke there, but I don't know. Right. And what I'm trying to tell you is overall, they keep trying to reverse your nature. See, what's evil to them should live for us. You got to start reversing it. What's evil to them has got to live for us. You're a king. When we come into a king's presence, you're a queen. When you come into a queen's presence, we say stuff like, "Oh king, live forever. Oh queen, live forever." Right? That's our culture. Now they say that kings are bad, but question: do you have kings in capitalism? So you don't know. They've reversed how we live so much that they got you thinking kings are evil, but they have kings. So maybe they just have evil kings. Right. Yeah, especially since he was in the arts, it makes sense. Yeah. And by the way, you know that what they call classical music, but you say classical, we only think of like Handel, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, etc. Right. But like the first pianos and everything, and the first universities that would have brought what you call classical music over to Europe, they come out of West Africa. They come out of places like Timbuktu and others. There's still places you can see right now where they use xylophones, but the xylophones, they actually have mallets, and the mallets that they use, they look like the hammers that are inside the piano, and they hit strings. They don't actually hit the actual wood blocks, and the strings make the wood resonate. Like that's where that came from. So a lot of stuff that you think of as when you say classical music, we're not even thinking of the fact that people were doing this, centuries before. Now, how you doing, Raven UK? If I didn't say so already today, sorry. He said, if we are doing wrong, why then Trace killed and persecuted? Yeah. Oh yeah, Picasso definitely. We know if you don't know that, that's admitted nowadays. It's like information that's out there. Picasso definitely copied off of like specific African work that was being done. So that's not even a big deal to even say anymore. It used to be. Now it's like you can't disprove it. Yeah, back then we didn't name sounds. Yeah, we comprehended frequency though. And we did actually talk about different frequencies that could be used. Matter of fact, a lot of, even on the other side, I'm talking about West Africa now, but if you go over to Kemet, ancient Kemet, and you look at what they were doing, even with, and some people who are still into Kemetic theology and stuff, they still do this stuff today, where they'll actually take big ankhs that have a certain frequency and that are made out of certain metals, and they cling them together, and they have a certain frequency that rings out, and it's supposed to be healing, and it helps your mind to to be able to comprehend things that it couldn't. And even they had even they started playing with it and stuff like that. We don't even think about it. They started playing it not only with sounds, but they started putting the sound in water, or even just putting some of the metals or some of the dirts even in the water. Like you can take certain dirts and you put them in there. There's certain things that pull metal out. And so a lot of your children, by the way, especially if they've been getting shots, if I might just go ahead and go to this level, I don't know why we're going here, but let's just follow where we're being led to. If you have children who've gotten a lot of shots, and a lot of shots that have these heavy metals and things like that, or they've been eating a lot of stuff that have heavy metals, you can actually, give them like, what is it, Epsom salts, baking soda, and I forget what it is. There's actually like a very Native American. There's a Native American compound that they use as well. But there's certain dirts you can put in that draw out the metal. And so a lot of your children, especially if they have speech impediments, you'll find that after they get some of these baths, they'll start speaking like right after they have the bath. They'll start speaking to you better. And it's not because they just calm down. It's because the precious metal has been taken out, or the extra metal. We should have metals in our body, but too much metal. So a lot of people, especially if you have babies that have had shots, this is why a lot of our especially boys, because the boys, the way we're designed, when we're younger, a lot of the metal actually sits in the brain. Yeah, red clay as well, but it's something else you can use as well. I forget, it's like a mixture. But there's a lot of stuff that sits in the brain when you get these shots. And it used to be, supposedly they've gotten rid of them. I wouldn't trust it all the way, but it used to be when you got a lot of these shots, these metals would sit in your brain. And if they sat in there too long, that's when you start having a lot of the mental health stuff you started seeing, including stuff like what we call ADHD, even though ADHD is also a coping mechanism that you can kind of teach a child to get through. I have ADHD. I use it to be able to look at all this stuff at the same time. Right. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to learn how to use it correctly. It just means you think different. Oh, thank you, Sister Rain. Appreciate that. And how you doing, if I didn't say so already? I don't think I've seen that one before. That one's nice. It's beautiful. But yeah, so you can literally make sure that you're so if they get certain shots, like some of these shots that they were giving these babies had like twice the legal limit of what you were allowed to give a dog when it went to the vet. Like you can give a dog, a pet, that much metal, but they were giving it to newborn babies. So, there's a lot of stuff that's even shot in, or medicine you're given, or things that you're eating, because they don't make sure that stuff is rotated, or they don't use things to get metals out. By the way, that's why they even use, like, technically, if you do eat it, you should only eat it every once in a while for cleansing purposes. But that's why technically you're not supposed to eat like the edamame and all that stuff. Y'all eat the soy and all this stuff that even in a lot of vegan meals is just straight up soy. I'd only use that every once in a while because it actually gives your body a sense of having false estrogen. But soy was actually something that was created, and it was created so that people who were, especially in like a lot of Asian countries, who were growing things like rice or certain things, and then it would become to or just anything really, and it would come to a certain time of year to where they couldn't grow anything, but they wanted to keep the ground fertile and keep going, and also they wanted to be able to soak up toxins out the ground. So they used the soy. The soy actually pulls out everything, and you can keep growing stuff through the winter, so that then they get all this stuff, toxins and everything pulled out of the ground, all these heavy metals that reside there. They pull them out, and they would toss it away, and then they would go ahead and grow some more stuff. Eventually, over time, though, capitalism, these people wanted more capital. They were throwing away a bunch of soy products that could be used, so they started telling people you could eat it. Right, tofu as well. Yeah, same thing, right? Tofu, edamame, soy, a lot of your vegan mac and cheeses and stuff that you guys eat and stuff like that. Like I was saying, I have it every once in a while, but especially if you're a male, I usually tell males that kind of stay away from it, keep your boys away from it, at least let them grow some. Maybe they can have a little bit here or there if you want to make sure you're pulling out these toxins. So that's what I was saying. Even soy can be used to pull out toxins every once in a while too, but you shouldn't be having it that much. And by the way, sisters, if you have too much soy, if you have false estrogen levels, guess what that's going to mean for you. Brothers will become actually more aggressive. We do this weird thing where we think that estrogen, depending on, sometimes can calm you down, but for brothers, usually estrogen will make you more aggressive. It's going to make you fire, and even if you're able to stay calm, you'll actually see brothers are having issues with concentration, right? Soy can also lead to some cancer and stuff like that, depending on how you're eating it or where it's coming from or what it's soaked up with it. But also for sisters, too much estrogen level is going to cause you what? To be like extremely calm and sometimes miss some things that you don't want to miss because you're so calm. You're so calm. Now, brothers want you to be like this and to be pious and things like that. But I like a sister that's on her that keeps me on my toes from time to time. So I don't want if my wife was talking to me like this at all times, I would think something's wrong. Right? Right? I know the red pill brothers want y'all to be on lock, but I need a sister that could point out some things every once in a while, right? But I'm trying to tell you, like, so you be surprised, right? And it had a righteous intent, but it still doesn't mean that you live in Live. It means that if you're not careful, you're not Live. If you're not careful, you could be Evil, living backwards. Righteous intent. I want to eat healthy. I want to be vegan. Well, comprehend that just because you eating plants, not like you can't just walk out and eat any plant, correct? Like you could poison yourself if you don't know what you're doing. You can, if you don't know what poison ivy looks like, you probably don't want to just go out around someplace that grows poison ivy because you could eat something that could kill you. Now, if you know what you're doing, you could turn it into a tea possibly and somehow, some way get some of the stuff that you want in your body to be taken care of medicinally. But you don't want to just go out and just touch, let alone eat poison ivy by accident. It could be the last time you eat. Oh, bentonite clay. Thank you. Yep, bentonite clay. That's what I was trying to talk about earlier. Thank you for the. I couldn't remember what the one I was called. The other ones were great suggestions too. But if you do, was it baking soda, Epsom salt, and bentonite clay is called. It's spelled Bentonite. 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 Yeah, if you put that together, you could put any of them in there, by the way. But if you put all three of them together, it's actually pulling out heavy metals. But you can use any of them by itself. Like there's nothing wrong with just taking a bath with some baking soda. Heck, if you only eat small amounts, nothing wrong with if you're trying to do some gut health stuff and some cleansing stuff, you might want to put a little tiny bit of baking soda in about a gallon of water and drink it. Drink it over a couple days. You know, even with stuff like that, like we have this intent thing. Like for example, what if you've been drinking a gallon of water every day? Because that's what you're supposed to do. Are you supposed to drink a gallon of water every day? Did you know that your body is not only made out of H2O? Did you know there's different types of water? You got it for your face mask. Never thought to put it in the tub. Charcoal. Oh yeah, charcoal definitely. If somebody's overdosing or something like that, or even putting charcoal on your teeth or whatever. And charcoal basically ain't nothing but if you go camping and you make a fire, then that's charcoal. You could just take the charcoal and take it, crush it up, do whatever. Like you got natural charcoal right there, right? Put it with some baking soda. And if you want it to smell a certain way, put a natural oil on it. Next thing you know, you made your own deodorant. Natural. If you want to use it for your teeth, don't put the oil in it. Just put the baking soda and charcoal together, brush your teeth. You said Bruce Lee died from too much water. Maybe Bruce Lee probably was on drugs. For real. And Bruce Lee was cheating on his wife when they found him. That doesn't mean that he couldn't have died from water, but more than likely he had an overdose. More than likely. They hid it very well because they didn't want everybody to know Bruce Lee was supposed to be, the man in China. But he was found with his mistress and his manager. So more than likely he was over his mistress' house. Who knows if they were in, having sex, but more than likely he was over his mistress' house. Or he was over his mistress' house. And more than likely what happens is that he overdosed. His mistress didn't want to just take him to the hospital, and neither did his manager. Said, just kind of keep him there or whatever. They basically put his limp body in a car or whatever and got him seen at some hospital where they could cover up whatever, and he died. And his wife found out basically after the mistress did, which messed her up for the rest of her life. Even though for real, she probably knew he was cheating, but You know, that's kind of how that went down. So it's like FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Y'all know he died with his mistress, his side piece, who was his cousin too, something like that. Actually, he was married to his cousin, and his mistress was his cousin, something crazy like that. Right? FDR and Eleanor were both related, something like that. And then he died with some other girl who was like a secretary at one point, but then became whatever. So yeah, cats be doing stuff like that, living in evil. We try to live. They trying to reverse it. They trying to take that LIVE and make it EVIL. Oh yeah, FDR. That's how. Yeah, he died with his mistress. She was crying over his body while Eleanor was getting the call that he had died. But that's what a lot of people do. You know, they live those double lives. They're all over the place. You know, like even like, and it's almost like this. And now I see what you were saying the other night, Holy Spirit. I was trying to figure out what the Holy Spirit was talking about. Now I see it. You know, it's even like people got this thing we could even call like spiritual diabetes, right? Like, you know, there's sugar diabetes and all that, hyperglycemic, hypoglycemic, all this stuff. Like people who have sugar diabetes, but there's also spiritual diabetes. And diabetes is caused, see if you look up the word diabetes, right? Diabetes basically means like sweet blood or sweet urine. I think it means sweet urine. How you doing, Sister Shima? Right? So it basically means sweet urine. And so in our mind, because we get this from Latin, which means it's romantic, how Romans viewed it, right? Which means somebody was tasting your urine. Yeah. You know, but anyways, in the romantic view, which is still the Greco-Roman view, which people try to get healed through, that prism, right? That practice. In your mind, you think that you eat too much sweets and that's why you have diabetes. Reality is usually the reason you have diabetes is because you eat things that cause it to be hard to break down what's needed to be broke down. And your cells get capped, your cells can't digest it. You eat like so much meat, you know, and what you would, and you get a lot of lipids, which y'all would call oils, right? You eat a lot of meat. I'm not saying you can't eat any, but we eat too much. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? And so we eat too much, and so we can't actually get the lipids in, and we can't get these oils in, and now you're having the stuff as far as like they say you're resistant, yeah, to insulin. But it's not even that you're resistant. It's like you got too much stuff going on, right? Like, you know, there's limits to this stuff, right? So if you eating 3 meals a day, a lot of us eating 3 meals a day, and it's going to be heavily focused on meat with very few vegetables, very little fruit, which, by the way, fruit diet would clean a lot of stuff that y'all have going on, period, because your fruit diet would be great for you. Why? Because the fruit is something that would be able to bless you, because the fruit actually gives you something that's missing as far as it gives you glucose. That's actually not, doesn't have to turn into glucose. And a lot of y'all are having issues in your pancreas because you can't turn stuff into glucose anymore. But if you give it straight glucose, then you're going to be straight, right? But then also it has H3O. You always think about H2O. And it's great to have H2O, and it's great to have it to where it's going to be, you know, high in its acidic levels, or well, not high in its acidic levels, you know, high in its alkaline levels. It's not going to be acidic. That's great. Have a lot of that. But, you know, you get a lot of water from fruit, and fruit water is different than the water that y'all drink. Just like salt water is different. Like, you know, if you have like water that y'all get from the store, you can actually put salt in it, like a pinch of salt, and it actually helps you to keep water in, because it's a different type of water than what you drink in the ocean. Ocean water is not as simple as H2O. See, you think that H2O is bad in the ocean because it's got too much salt. No, it's a different type of water altogether. H2O is something that you can get, you know, from what you carry with you, right? But then on top of that, now you start getting into fruit. And fruit is anything that has seed. That's what makes it a fruit, right? So yeah, so cucumber, if cucumber has seed, right? If tomatoes have seed, if bananas, they're supposed to. Most people haven't had bananas that have it, but bananas are supposed to have seed, so they come with H3O. See, and so somebody told you have a gallon of water every day. I don't need a gallon of water every day. Like if you doing something, matter of fact, even if you in the woods foraging all day, every day, even if you camp and live in the wood life, if you walking 2-3 miles a day, you still don't need that much H2O, right? So anything that you're eating that gives seed is a fruit. Anything that's a fruit, it comes with H3O. And so a lot of your hydration should be coming through a lot of fruit. And here's what they do to you, because they want you don't want you to live. They don't want you to live LIVE. They want you to deal in evil, EVIL. Fruit is the most expensive stuff on the planet nowadays, especially if you don't want the waxy stuff and you want stuff that's organic, which organic don't always mean that it's healthy either. That's why you should grow your own fruit, grow your own food, trade your own food with your own community that you can trust. Right, even with eggs. Now, there's some people, especially if you're vegan or you're vegetarian, you don't want nothing to do with, well, some vegetarian, depending on what type of vegetarian, but you don't want nothing to do with eggs. But I'm here to tell you, if you get eggs, eggs are basically one of the only foods, right? Vegetable, shoot, root, meat, whatever, one of the only foods that are going to give you all 23 amino acids. Period. One of the only ones. Guess what one of the most expensive things is now? Eggs. That's why we got as soon, didn't even expect to be able to get them, because they were saying how hard they were to get. We just happened to be at a store. They got chicks there, so we buy 3 of them, because we know that 3 chicks, once they become 3 hens, especially the type that we have, they're gonna lay at least a dozen eggs a week. Probably before we leave, I'm probably gonna get a few more. Right? And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, it comes to a point to where you got to learn how to live and not be an evil. It's evil when somebody will tell you that you can't afford something that just comes from nature. Where we found the chicks, weren't even looking for them. Don't even know what store, because I wasn't there. My wife found them, but she down for the vision. She down for the mission, like we talked about earlier. So she was like, oh, no problem. Say less. Got three chicks, $4 a piece. For some of y'all, that's 2 dozen eggs. Now, yeah, am I gonna have to wait for those chicks to start giving me eggs? Sure. But when they start giving me eggs, who's gonna be saving money? Like, what if the price of eggs keeps rising? I don't know if it will or won't. But see what I'm saying? We don't have anything where we're saying we're going to live. We're stuck in evil, because this is manipulative. They fed them things knowing that when they fed them these things, they wouldn't be able to produce eggs. And then they want you to feel crazy about trying to make sure that you have a place in your spot for chickens. You said you only buy free range? Yeah. So guess what? You make sure you have your own chickens. You give them free range. Right? Like think about this. This blew my wife and I away. This is one of the best laughs her and I have ever had. This is years ago. I want to say this is maybe 8-9 years ago. Maybe not, maybe 7 years ago. When we walked through a store, and it just hit us one day. We're walking through a store, we're looking for something. I think we were getting ready to do something for some church event we've been invited to, or whatever. We wanted to make sure that we came bearing, gifts. So normally we bring something with us if we go somewhere. We try to bless people with something. And so we were invited to the church or whatever. We were like, okay, fine, we're gonna go. We led, and we were going to the store looking for food. I don't know if we were looking for beef or not, but when we went there and we saw grass-fed beef, and we just, like, both of us, it hit us, because our whole lives we just never thought about it. As simple as, we knew that you should look for grass-fed beef, but we just had this moment where it finally hit us together, like like, wait a minute, why do they have to say grass-fed beef? And we started to laugh, because we realized, because a lot of beef ain't grass-fed. I already knew, that they fed a lot of cows, chicken feed, uh, corn. They had given them, even when dead cows would die, they would feed them sometimes the dead cows. Like I already knew that a lot of that stuff happened that way, which is why you had mad cow disease and a lot of other things like that. They were eating the food that they were pooping in, and living in their poop and squalor and stuff like that. Like I could tell. Yeah, I thought cows ate grass. We both looked at each other, just kind of had a nice laugh for a while. For about 2-3 minutes, people were looking at us crazy. And we were laughing because we were just sitting up there. I remember the layout of the store and everything. And I remember us being in the corner over there in the meat section and us just laughing because we realized, like, how crazy have we been our whole lives, but we don't realize how crazy that sign is. How much evil do you have to be in to not realize that, wait a minute, like they have to put on a sign that these cows are actually fed grass? But even some of the best cow meat that you get today, you don't realize that they don't eat grass. Matter of fact, a lot of the steaks that people get, you don't realize that they're gluing different types of meat together and calling it what you think it is. So you eating pork and stuff like that. You're eating chicken and pork and beef put together in certain ways. They're just mixing and matching it and making sure they glue it together. So you're even eating glue. But you say, man, this thing is tender. People are messing with it. Horse meat too. Yeah, possibly. Probably places where horses are readily available, especially some places like Texas for sure. I can see that easy. Texas, Oklahoma, I guess spots in Maryland. They don't really mess with the horses like that up there. They're supposed to be free, but horse meat scandal in the UK. Oh, okay. I didn't even know about that. I had to read up on that. But yeah, you'd be surprised, man, how much of this stuff is there. And you're so used to having live reverse, right? You're so used to having, instead of it being LIVE, it being EVIL. You're so used to that you don't even look for it anymore. And people get weird with you. They say you're weird. They get frustrated with you because you would dare bring up, like, some of this don't make sense. He said industrial development in the farms killed our health. We were never meant to eat processed food. That too. Some people doing roux. One thing people be doing that they don't even realize is probably in a lot of stuff that you don't even think about is ostrich and what's the other one? I'm gonna be putting that stuff up on my son's YouTube page from like last year when we were in at the Memphis Zoo and we saw the kangaroos. There was something emu. Thank you. Ostrich and emu. Emu. I always mess that up. Emu, I think. But there's a lot of that in there too. Ostrich meat is one of the best selling meats, on the planet. After the big three, there's a lot more people eating ostrich than you think. And people will say, like, you're wrong for bringing this stuff up, but it's because you're in evil so long that you're not even willing to live. Once again, remember, live is just evil backwards, and evil is just live backwards. Well, even with vegan, like we said, there's a lot of people eating vegan and you're still not getting stuff like, if you're eating vegan, please make sure that you know about those amino acids. Like, if you're eating vegan, please make sure you know where stuff is grown. If you're eating vegan, still make sure, like, that there's stuff that they're doing. Like, if you get brown rice sometimes it's just rice that they colored brown, white rice that they colored brown, and it was white rice because they bleached it to make it white. So now they got to make it brown again. So you're having double chemicals. Or people who go and they get cane sugar. A lot of that stuff, cane sugar, those brown packets, especially for the heavy coffee drinkers and stuff like that, that cane sugar sometimes is just sugar that they colored back brown. The sugar should have never been white in the first place, right? They processed it. Now they know that people want it. And so, hey, rather than lose a bunch of sales on this sugar, they're going to make sure that they color some of it brown. So you have to see, like, no matter what you're doing, you have to be prepared. One of the things that we haven't done, we live, once again, we live in reverse. LIVE is EVIL. So we live in reverse so often that in the reverse nature of what things are, instead of living and in the reverse, in the evil, we don't even think about what goes in the body. So once again, like I was saying, when you talk about diabetes, a lot of people talk about diabetes thinking that it comes from you're eating too much sweets, thinking it's sweet urine, diabetes. But the reality is that diabetes actually is dealing with too much oil, lipids, fat, stuff like that. And it's around the cell that blocks the cell from even being able to digest. And so now what happens is instead of the cells eating it, it now is in your blood. So now guess what? Your blood has high levels. Well, the same thing happens with spiritual diabetes. You're eating a bunch of stuff that's evil. And your body is designed, sure, okay, if I got to, I can take the evil and get it out of my system. I can defecate, I can urinate, I can sweat, I can, even the pimples and stuff that y'all be having, pimples and all those things, that's just your body trying to excrete stuff. And it's freaking out. It needs to get rid of the waste. If you deal with your fibroid cyst, your body is trying to excrete stuff, or your body can't get rid of waste and something's really going to tear it up. So your body is trying to, since it's fearfully and wonderfully made, is actually going to try to protect you. So it tries to come up with a cyst. It covers whatever's going on inside to make sure that it's not going to bother your body. Right? And we have all the spiritual stuff that we're eating as well that manifests in the physical stuff. Your fibroid cysts are usually going to manifest from different things that are happening emotionally and spiritually. Like this is where this stuff is coming from. Even when you're talking about this stuff as well, for example, when women are having a heavy period or a heavy flow, it's really going to be hypothalamus, pituitary gland issues, dealing with what? The pineal gland, which is dealing with what? Melanin flow. Right? Melanin flow. That's what you're dealing with, is what? Melanin flow. Why are you dealing with melanin flow? Why are you dealing with melanin flow? You're dealing with melanin flow because melanin is regulating. The pituitary gland is vibrating. The melanin is regulating what's going on even in your flow. And so what happens is what? Every time that a woman has an egg that comes through, that egg is designed to come into attachment with sperm. If it doesn't meet up with sperm, right, then it's going to begin to do what? It's going to begin to be sacrificed, and you're going to deal with the life that's in you, right? And you're dealing with all that energy and all that spirit and all those hormones that are manifesting, because there's a life that's crying up from the ground, just as Abel cried up, his blood cried up from the ground after he was dead and the conversation was had. There's something happening in your garden, and there's a gland doesn't have melanin. Even melatonin is dealing with melanin, correct? I don't get what the argument's about. What did I say that was wrong? I said the pituitary gland, which is dealing with vibrations, connected to the pineal gland as well, regulation that happens there. We're dealing with calcification. I didn't mention that as all, right? And then if I'm talking about the hypothalamus, so you can take melatonin. I talked about that way earlier. If you want to calm down or something like that, like you kind of could think of like serotonin, Sirius, melatonin, mellow. I didn't even mention any of that, but I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out where that comes from. But if you're talking about melanin, because melatonin is still dealing with melanin, whether we want to admit that or not, like the pineal gland is melanin. That's what I'm dealing with. So but if you're dealing with those things, even if you're dealing with melatonin trying to mellow out, you're still dealing with what? With melanin. You said, well, I was about to answer, but I was immediately blocked. So now you're afraid to say anything? Okay, well, I don't think you were immediately blocked because you were being nice. I think you were immediately blocked because well, first of all, you can't be blocked. If I can read what you're saying, you weren't blocked. Now you were muted for a little bit. And we do have a right to make sure that we make sure certain things are protected here, not just as far as we want only whatever is saying to be said, but we can be pulled down if people say certain things. So just treat each other like human beings. If you have a question, just say, hey, well, why is it that you think this? Or is it all right about this? Or maybe somebody else scientifically, because I'm part of Western science that says that it works like this, that's fine, rather than just saying somebody doesn't know what they're talking about. That's probably what got you muted. You said, why do people get blocked and muted? Sometimes people say heinous stuff. Sometimes people are just out here just questioning for the sake of questioning. We don't mind questioning, but if it comes to a time, like for example, you see that I'm spending all this time instead of talking about something that could cause healing for somebody based off of things that you could read in any science book or in any healing book, or you could read from Dr. Leah Africa, you could read from Dr. Sabi, you could read, I forget the young cat that's picking up steam now. You could take from people even, that go all the way back to the times of Kemet that are still true, and things that are from a different perspective. I'm having to deal with all this stuff just because somebody decided that, hey, look at me, my thing has to be the most important. Hey, why aren't you talking about me? Why don't you agree with me? So sometimes that needs to be dealt with. Right. And today the topic is stop living backwards. So maybe you're seeing something backwards, then live backwards. LIVE is what? EVIL. So quite possibly somebody could be seeing something that's distracting things or whatever. Right. So this is what we're saying, is that there's some things that maybe you, and by the way, we're talking about our culture too. So it's cultural relevance. So at the end of the day, this might sound backwards to you because I might be even saying something very similar to what you're saying, but we don't use the same terminology. Right? If I live backwards, LIVE is how I should live. But if I live backwards, it's EVIL. And that's what our focus is and our concern is for today. All right. So I don't even see now I don't remember where I was. This, that, boom, boom. Oh yeah. So sometimes when you're bleeding heavy and things, that's dealing with your pineal gland being jacked up, or your pituitary gland not vibrating correctly. Sometimes it can be as simple, sisters, as your blood flow being too heavy. Sometimes it can be as simple as, why are you shoving plastic up yourself? Like plastic causes cancer. Plastic causes cells to break up or to be jacked up. Why would you do that to yourself? If anything, have something that's gonna let it breathe down there. As much can breathe as possible. Matter of fact, if you're eating correctly, especially if you know your cycle, like as a husband, by the way, husbands, we should learn our wives' cycles too. It would help you a lot in being able to be empathetic and learning and growing. And by the way, learn your own cycle. Brothers, we have periods as well. They don't look the same, so you don't think of them as the same, and they don't operate as often because normally you don't allow yourself to go through a wet dream anymore because we don't have discipline. If we're not having sex with our wife, we're gonna find a way to get rid of it some way, somehow. But you have periods too, which show this, which is why you get emotional certain times and can't figure out what's going on, right? But when it comes to the sister, if you're dealing with the heavy blood flow, you got to recognize that part of dealing with the heavy blood flow is actually a lot deeper than what's going on. You could be dealing with something as far as like you're not allowing yourself to breathe down there. I'm not saying walk around without underwear or anything, but I mean, heck, you're already walking around a lot of times with stuff that doesn't allow to breathe down there. I know most underwear is cotton or 100% cotton nowadays, but you already got that covered up. Then you're putting on something else inside, whether it be a pad or whether it be a tampon, and you're already sticking that up there now, and you've already got something that's dead inside, so you're having the blood being caught up right at your vaginal area and your space. You said you use cloth pads. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, so you're using a lot of different stuff, and then you're having plastic all over it. And then even if you peel the plastic off and you're saying that, hey, the rest of it's there, the plastic is already steeped into, right? It already has seeped into, rather, it has been steeped, therefore, in whatever it is that the plastic was bringing. And if you drink stuff that has plastic in it, right? If you don't have a metal jug or whatever, and you're drinking out of plastic, that's BPA, bisphenol A, right? So you're already giving your body stuff that causes cancer. So now you're putting it in your vaginal region. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff going on, and if you're not eating correct, a lot of times your blood is not doing things correctly either. So a lot of times when you see, especially our sisters, but a lot of women, but our sisters, I think something crazy like 87 to 90% of our sisters deal with heavy blood flow and deal with all these extra. I don't want to say blemishes because they're not all blemishes are the same, but you know what people be thinking are pimples, or you just have these dark spots and you can't get rid of them no matter what you do. Usually it's just a sign that your body can't get rid of what needs to be gotten rid of in your body. You're dealing with fibroid cysts. You're dealing with blood flow issues. We can say acne. Yeah, it's not always just acne, because sometimes there's the really dark like stuff there that doesn't really come out, or whatever. But that's a lot of times because things. And then now let's go there. You've been taught that you need to cover your face up with so much makeup. I don't mind makeup; it's your choice or whatever. But I'm just trying to show you, especially a lot of this makeup is not organic, or it's not stuff that you should even be putting in your pores. And even if you got the stuff, if it's organic, you shouldn't have it on your pores all day. But that's what we do. That's what we teach. Some women have spend more hours a day with their pores stuffed than their pores clear. Some of y'all even accidentally get so tired that you don't even take the makeup off before you go to sleep. If you have a day where you can't even make it to the shower, you're just so tired and you fall out in the bed. Now you're dealing with over 24 hours of having your pores clogged. So you got waste trying to come out that you've covered up, and then you made sure you stuff stuff in there to where nothing can come out. This stuff actually attributes to heavy blood flow, or sometimes when you can't have a child. Come on, and we don't talk about this. Is great preaching, by the way. I know I'm not giving you go to the book of Psalms and read this and see what Yeshua said about your eating habits. And do you not know that your body is the temple of the living God? But this is great word. Like, we need to get more of this out. Even when you talk about being incontinent or becoming older or things like that, it's because that your body's not taking the minerals as much as they used to. Some of that can be something as simple as gut health. Some of that can be as simple as, like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you might want to let your veggies get to a place where they're not disgusting, but yeah, they smell a little weird, and you might want to eat them because they'll help you with gut health. Let it sit out. Don't let it get disgusting or putrid or anything, but let it get out to where it's like borderline, should I eat this, should I not? And then put it in your gut. Start dealing with your gut health. You need to have certain things. Some people are always flushing their system. I say this all the time. Like, don't be one of these people that's cleansing all the time. Like, you can't cleanse every day. If you cleanse every day, you're wiping out certain things that your body needs. And even if you're cleansing, make sure that you know where to direct the cleansing. Like, people will eat food and not know how to direct it. For example, let's say that we have a sister who's having issues with breast milk, right? Like, when you're born, like you're getting ready to give bear a child. All right, we don't bear kids over there. We don't give birth to kids because you're not a ship, so don't worry about being birthed, right? And they're not a kid, so don't worry about being a baby goat, right? We bear children over here. Our sisters bear children. All right. So let's say you're getting ready to bear a child, and once there's a few things they're not even going to tell you, right? Like, they're not going to tell you don't have a child on your back with your legs up here, when the reality is you're supposed to have a child squatting straight down. They didn't start doing that until the last few hundred years. That's why y'all have spine issues. That's why y'all got to have people shoot your spine with all this stuff. That's why you had to get high. That's what they're doing. You're getting high so that you don't feel pain. And that means your baby is high, because whatever you eat, your baby eats. Right? That's the way it works. Right? So you and your baby high, and they got you on your back. Now you're supposed to actually give birth. The toilet, did y'all see? Look up something called a birthing stool. When you get a chance, look up the picture of something called a birthing stool, right? Now, I know we don't give birth, but I'm just saying that's what they call it. Look up something called a birthing stool. You would discover that it basically just looks like a toilet. And you used to sit on top of it, and you would have your legs up, right? Your legs would be up like this, just like they have you on your back, but you would be straight up. And the reason is because the same muscles that you use to use the bathroom, that's why you should try to use the bathroom. Young ladies, if you still, young sisters out here, if you still try to make sure that you're having children, or if you're childbearing age and you want to make sure that everything will be stronger, you want to make sure that you're using the bathroom with your legs up. Brothers should be doing it too. It actually opens up, all of the, I guess I'll be nice today and call it channels, not sphincters and stuff like that, and some other language we could use, but it opens up all the spaces in there. And also, sisters, the same muscles that you use to use the bathroom are the same muscles you will use to give birth, or to bear children. And they do it in the water too, yeah. Because by the way, it doesn't, because the baby is used to not breathing anyways and being in water. So when the water breaks, why not have the water break and just have the baby go in the water again? And then you pull the baby out the water and then allow the baby to breathe for the first time. Also, too, of course, you shouldn't cut the umbilical cord because the umbilical cord falls off naturally after it's gotten all the stuff from what we call the afterbirth, right? The placenta is supposed to keep feeding the baby. And especially for first time mothers, you have an issue because nobody taught you how to make sure that you were taking your pills and everything, and all the stuff for your vitamins and minerals. Nobody told you to start taking that stuff before you were going to get impregnated. So now you're trying to catch up you're not supposed to have formula, and the formula was not made for all babies, because not all babies are what created equal. If a mother has twins and she's breastfeeding twins, it's supposed to be made specifically to give born children. See, now I'm saying birth after you've bear the child. See, take that into your everyday evaluation of where you are in life. You're not going to really be able to be as healthy as you need to be. Erect. And they don't need to be erect just because you're about to have sex. Like, a man should be erect, period. And you'll sit up there, oh, dirty old man, he erect. No, no. Like, if he's healthy, he might be erect. You remember a sign of being healthy when you were going through puberty was that you couldn't control when it was coming up or down? We used to make fun of boys like that, but that's natural. That's healthy blood flow. That's the reason why somebody takes a Viagra pill or a Cialis or uh, what is it called, Blue Chew, or there's hundreds of them now. I can't keep up with all this stuff. Right, never used any before, praise God, and I prayerfully never will need to. Right, but there's a reason. Matter of fact, if he's healthy, he shouldn't just have it to where it comes up kind of sort of like this or like this. It should be sometimes up above. The higher it goes is actually the healthier he is. That's how he's designed. That's how he's designed. So he should, in his older age, still be doing those things. And they're taking all this medicine. So you know why? Because they've ate seedless stuff. You eat stuff that doesn't produce seed. How you gonna have your body that produces seed be ready? You don't eat things that help out with blood flow. Sometimes it's colorized. Sometimes you could eat just red pepper, or you could eat red um, clove. You could eat red tomatoes. You could have red grapes with seed in them, please. You could have red apples with actual seed and not wax on them, please. But literally, sometimes it's as easy as color coding. Now, there's other stuff. Obviously, you could have dandelion roots. If you make sure that your stomach health is okay. So obviously, you're dealing with ginger, things like that. You could obviously do things such as I see it in my mind, but I don't know why. I feel like it's a letter G word too. Uh, some people talk about it as being an aphrodisiac, but it basically is giving you blood flow. Um, Looks like a man's body. I see it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know why I can't speak it. But there's a bunch of stuff. It'll come to me if it's necessary, right? But there's a lot of stuff that you could be doing. Well, ginkgo is dealing with the brain, which also is doing some blood flow stuff as well. But that's not ginseng. Thank you, ginseng. That's actually a root that looks like a body, by the way. So guess what? Ginseng is great for. It's great for your whole body. If you don't have an allergic to this, what about walnuts? Walnuts has a shell protecting a nut that looks like a brain, just like you have a skull that protects your brain. Like you have all this stuff that's around you. We don't think about it. The pineal gland, if you want to make sure the pineal gland is flowing well, why not have something made from pines or pine trees? You can do stuff with pine leaves, pine bark. Matter of fact, why not take some of this bark and burn it? Let it be like incense. Right? Like, there's so many different things, right? And so many things are created. But anyways, going back to our sisters, right? They don't even tell you that in all this process as far as milking, right? If you got issues with milk, guess what you should have? What looks like breasts? What looks like the inside of the breast and the outside of the breast? Real quick. Real quick. See, this is you have stuff around you that's been designed to even look like you. Well, you don't think about natural law. We should be living LIVE, but we're so reversed. We are in EVIL. What's some stuff that you could easily eat that looks like the outside and the inside of a woman's breast? Citrus. Boom. Citrus. Boom. Oranges. Looks like the outside and the inside. Lemon. Looks like the outside and the inside. Lime. Looks like the outside and the inside. Grapefruit looks like the outside and the inside. So if you want breast milk to flow, get some citrus in your life. Cantaloupe, to a certain extent, yeah, it's going to do things a little different, but it's going to do something similar. It looks like you, but you say it doesn't matter what I look like, or everything that's for this or that, or everything that's for a man or a woman, and blah blah. Like, look, I can have some stuff and it'll help me with my breast as well. And yes, you can say the chest area, you can call it the breast, etc. Like, yes, men can get breast cancer, chest cancer, etc. All this stuff too. But hear what I'm saying? Like, if you need milk, you got to think like a sister for a second. Why don't they teach us this? Why is it so bad to say that you are a sister? That there are certain things that have to help you. Right? Like, you get, and watch this. It'll help you with your milk flow. Watch this. Now, let's say that you're having an issue with cancer, or let's say you're having an issue with cancer. Now, let's say you're dealing with a type of cancer, because a lot of cancer, usually there's different ways to determine cancer. One of the ways that they determine cancer is that you might only have like 40% of oxygen going to those particular cells. So let's say I'm dealing with something like that and it's cancerous, and they say that you're only getting 40% oxygen. Sometimes I can tell, because I can just tell by the fact that, like, your fingers are dark, your fingernails are black. If your toenails are black, guess what we having? More than likely, we having some issue. I deal with it myself. I was dealing with it from a child. Didn't realize that I had, like, now they've gotten a lot better. I used to have like half of some of my toes. Some of my full toes were black. I didn't realize I wasn't getting oxygen to my feet. They never tell you that, right? You can tell by the lips, of course, and all that, right? So let's say they say you have cancer, and I look down, I go, oh, she got black fingernails. Okay, what's great for oxygen? Let's just make it smart. Let's just make it smart. Let's just be honest about it. Let's once again deal with this real human organic experience as a human being. If you're having an issue with oxygen, what gives oxygen? Real quick, you know what looks like lungs? The inside of lungs? Grapes. Seeded grapes. And yes, you might even need to eat the seed as well. Let's crush up some grapes and get those grape seeds if we need to. If you don't want to chew the grapes because you feel like the texture, even though the texture is worth eating because it's worth saving your life. But okay, fine. You don't want to do that. Let's mix it up with something, and let's even put it together like this. Let's go ahead and juice. Let's go ahead and get some, I don't know, whichever citrus you like best. Maybe we put together some oranges and some grapes. Matter of fact, if we want to deal with blood flow, maybe we'll put some cayenne pepper in there, right? Those of you who like a little spice in there, let's put a little cayenne pepper in there. Let's also put some ginger in there to make sure that your stomach is going to be able to handle this, and you'll be able to digest it and all that, right? And let's mix that, something real easy like that, something real easy. Let's put that together. Let's blend it together, and then you go ahead and you drink it. And guess what I just told your body to do? See, this is how you're made. We live so much in reverse evil that we don't know how to live. We're reversing it. See what's just happened? I literally told your body I want to take care of blood, cayenne pepper, right? So I'm also going to thin some of the blood, but it's not good, but it also will coagulate. So just in case you got some kind of blood issue, you internally bleed, it's not like those medicines they give you to where it'll just thin your blood, but it takes away your ability to coagulate. The cayenne pepper will make sure that it's coagulated, or that if it needs to, it can coagulate, but it will thin it. So even some of the stuff that's going on is making it harder for the blood to flow. I've said the blood will flow better, right? I've given you ginger to make sure that your stomach is going to be able to do some stuff, and also dealing with digestion issues, because a lot of your issues including our digestion, which means really before we even do a lot of this stuff, I would have you drink out of a copper cup, right? Regularly, or I would have you have a lot of magnesium, because you're probably going to be magnesium deficient. And if you're a sister, you're probably going to be iron deficient. So I probably got to make sure that you're getting magnesium, metal in your life, and also make sure that you get an iron in your life. And then as I make sure you can digest, I'm gonna give you ginger to make sure the digestion's going on in your life as well. Digestion is huge. I'm gonna make sure not only did I give you digestion, but then I got to make sure that I'm dealing with your when I gave you the cayenne pepper, that's gonna help blood flow, right? Matter of fact, I might take some of this stuff and instead of making it all juice, I might even make you take some of it after you drink the juice. I might make you put a concoction of it that sits under your tongue because then it goes straight into your bloodstream. So you get some that's initially right away getting to what the heart of the matter is. And at the same time, you got some that's going to slowly be digested. I might do that too, right? And then on top of that, then I say, okay, now why did I give you but what was the issue in the first place? They said you might have cancer, or they said you got cancer in your chest. Why was that important that we gave you the stuff? Because where are we going to? The same area that your breasts are, the same area that your milk was in. So we gave you the citrus because that told your body that everything that you're eating, make it flow to the breast. That's why we gave you the citrus. See that? Like, that's how you're created. That's natural law. Why don't we teach that? Why is it that we got preachers that are dying because they got diabetes? I'm not saying you can't die early, whatever Yah tells you to do, but why is it that we're dying because we're disobedient when it comes to taking care of the temple? This is when we have a problem. If the Most High decided to take you, he decided to take you. But but we do this thing, well, it was just his time. Nobody knows why. It's like that man 350 pounds. I think I know why. Please, I'm not getting on you. Look, my mama, she died of multiple sclerosis. I learned recently that multiple sclerosis is a lot of it has to do with parasites. Had I known that back in the day, we could have made sure that she was still here. So I'm not saying that I'm blaming you for this stuff. What I'm saying is they took this stuff away from us. They dismembered you from it. Now we got to come back and remember. We got to come back into membership with our own bodies and how we're created. Everything I just told you is something you could read in the book if you need to. You can look it up online. You can tell me, is citrus for breast milk? You can tell me, you can see if I'm lying. It's cayenne pepper for stuff. Matter of fact, if I'm using turmeric, which is great for your joints, then guess what I got to use with it? I got to activate it with black pepper. So you can have all the turmeric in the world and be putting it under your tongue and everything, but if there's no black pepper, it will not be activated. You see? So even in that, you can do so many different things. We're doing, like, even when you eat eggplant, by the way, how many people have actually ate white eggplant? This is something that's wild, that I find it interesting that many of us have never done. I never did it and ate a real one until I went over, to one of my trips back home, West Africa, Shwe, Ghana. And you go back there and you have actual eggplant. The first time I ate it, I was sick because it was natural. It like cleansed me out. I was sick. Some of y'all are worried about getting sick because of what somebody sprayed. Some of y'all need to get sick. When I went to boot camp, they tell you straight up, you will not feel well when you start eating because they give you real food. They tell you straight up, you will not feel well. You're not going to use the restroom because you're not used to having real food. And people go 2 weeks without being able to go number 2 because you haven't ate non-processed food, or even the processed food they give you is a lot better than what you normally get because they need you to be alive long enough to go ahead and give your life later on. So they want to make sure you at least get through this. They need you to pass that PT test. They'll give you a little donut here or there, something like that for sure. Right, but you're gonna get some real food. You said, what about the prostate? Depends on what's going on with the prostate. But prostate, is basically, we're dealing with, for real, you're usually going to be dealing with digestion. You're dealing with some of the same stuff you're eating. And 9 times out of 10, like, here's the best thing you can do. Most of us are not prepared to do this. 9 times out of 10, best thing to do with all this stuff is to fast. Even when you're eating, right, you're basically, when you're having dietary restrictions, you're still fasting. A fast just means I'm separating, right? If I'm faster than somebody, then that just means I can separate from them at a quicker rate. I can separate from the starting point at a quicker rate than the other person can. That's all it means to be fast or faster, right? Hey man, how you doing, Sister Latoya? Right? So a lot of us aren't even. It's difficult, like a lot of us, like I said today, a lot of people gonna go to church today, and they gonna worship the Most High. At least so they say. And I'll go ahead and acquiesce. Let's say you going to worship the Most High, praise Yah. Once you finish the worship, what you gonna go do? Where you going to eat? You're gonna hear somebody preach about your body as the temple, and then you're gonna go somewhere. You're gonna put stuff as much pork, which comes with all types of I don't know why I'm trying to say pesticides. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Bacteria, not yes, but no. What is I'm looking for? Comes with all types of. I just talked about it earlier with my mother and multiple sclerosis. Sorry, y'all. It's carcinogen, yeah, but that's not what I'm looking for. Parasites. Thank you. I don't know if I couldn't catch that word, right? So you're gonna go and get all that stuff and then put parasites right in your body. Antibiotics, of course, too, right? Which is, by the way, a lot of the reason why a lot of you guys go to your doctor and you can't take an antibiotic or you're allergic. You know why? Because if you already are eating antibiotics off of these animals all the time, then it means you can't have antibiotics do anything for you. This is stuff that we should be preaching, but we're so used to living in reverse. We don't live, we evil. Like, these people have studied you. Do you not know that everywhere you're gonna go for fast food today? Choose wisely where you go, period. But do you not know everywhere you're gonna go for fast food? Because some of y'all still gonna eat fast food right after I finish doing this. And we still praise y'all for it. We still praying for you. We still praying for his protection. But you're gonna make it difficult for him if you're gonna keep being disobedient. Right? But I'm just here to tell you, when you go anywhere, you're gonna have what? You're gonna have sugar, you're gonna have salt, you're gonna have fat. Period. Do you know why you're gonna have sugar, salt, and fat? It's very simple. We're not gonna make this mystical, so that's not practical. Let's make this practical, as plain as the nose on your face. Right? You ready for this? Why do you think that no matter where you go, even when you go to restaurants, they're still gonna provide you what? Sugar, salt. Actually, let's go for real, because some of y'all don't like to include this in when I say fat. So I'm gonna add another one: sugar, salt, fat, and milk. Even at vegan restaurants, they put butter on the stuff sometimes. You have to ask when you go to restaurants. You have to say, can you make sure there's no butter on it? Because they'll put butter on everything. Because they know you're addicted to it. But why do you think they give you sugar, salt, fat? And if you don't want to add this, you think it's something different, dairy, butter. Why? Why do you think that is? Get you addicted? Sure. They've studied you. They've researched you. You haven't researched you, and you haven't researched them, but they've studied you. You know why you will? You want those things because usually those things have to do with the fact that you don't feel loved. We're going to make it practical. We're not going to make it super mystical. Let's stop making it mystical. Some of y'all think that spirituality is a mystical thing. So I want to help you realize that spirituality can be practical, right? They realize that a lot of people, because the way this system works, they don't get the love that's required for them to feel whole. The word holy is whole, one. So therefore, because of that, they know that when people who don't feel like they're loved are looking for something to eat, they're looking for salt, they're looking for sugar, they're looking for fat. Period. Put those things together and you got diabetes, don't you? And if you don't have diabetes, you have a diabetic symptom, don't you? They know what you're looking for. They know that you comfort eat. They know what comfort eating is. They helped create the standard of comfort eating. Right? When you go to McDonald's and you make that order, you say, let me get, I don't even remember which is which. Number one used to be a Big Mac, I think, right? Then number one used to be a Big Mac, probably still is. They probably ain't gonna get rid of that one because you get twice as much of all this stuff. So just in your burger, do you not know that you got salt, sugar, and fat? Ketchup. Ketchup is more than half of ketchup is sugar, and then even than that is red coloring. Red food coloring. Then they put a little bit of tomato in there so they can say that it's what you think ketchup is. So you just got in your Big Mac, you just got sugar in your ketchup. And your Big Mac, guess what? Your bun is going to turn into sugar. And your bun and the burger are going to be seasoned with some salt, some sodium. And some of y'all going to ask for extra salt so you can put more on there anyway. And then you got the meat that's going to come with fat. Now their meat is not even real meat nowadays. It's a meat I guess byproduct or a meat formula. But that's what you're eating. That's what you're eating. That is what you are eating. You just had in one burger. You didn't even get to the fries. Fries got salt on them. And by the way, the fries, potatoes are fine. Potatoes are a root, right? So you need some roots in your diet. Potatoes are root. That's fine. But the problem is that you had the potato mixed with oil. And what they didn't tell you is that the root, right? You're dealing with water because roots pull up water. And potatoes are a whole bunch of water. You don't even realize that. That's why you think of them as being bland. Remember, not all water is equal. Like there's H2O, H3O, etc., right? So you're eating water, mostly water with the potato, but somebody put it in oil. If I were to take oil and water and put it in this jar, right? And even if I mixed it all together, what would happen eventually to the oil and water? It would separate, correct? Yeah, and they do put sugar in there as well, right? So if I put oil, water together in a French fry and I eat them regularly, it's one of the most dangerous things for you because it's literally when it gets in your body, guess what it has to do? It has to separate. Everything that you eat has to go back to its original intent, which is why it's dangerous to eat processed foods. Because your body, in order to digest it properly, it has to bring it back to its original intent. For example, if I eat a grape and I don't have seed in the grape, my body is trying its best to figure out what does it need to take from itself to first make this a grape again in the body. I'm not saying it's not being broken down and digested, but hear what I'm saying. The body knows that this in its natural state, right? The grape has been designed to give the body its whole self. But when you get a modified grape, it can't give its whole self. So it becomes dangerous, right? Let me put it to you like this. If you were to eat a raisin, be careful how many raisins you eat. I used to be when I was younger, man. I eat the 6-pack of raisins. Love me some raisins. Put raisins in everything that I eat. Put raisins in the oatmeal. Put raisins. It might sound disgusting to y'all. Put raisins in the grits. Put raisins. Put raisins in the cereal. Put raisins on everything. Right. Problem with raisins though is you got to be careful about is that raisins are what? They're dehydrated grapes. You said, so what do we eat? You eat things that are natural. There's things that exist besides McDonald's, right? Like you could forage for food. If you know what lettuce looks like, wild lettuce grows in the hood. It grows in between the cracks of the streets. You could just pick that up and eat. Dandelions. Make sure nobody sprayed them, of course. But I used to just straight up pick up dandelions and eat them as bitter as they were. Right? But hear what I'm saying? So when you got raisins, this is what your body does. Your body says, we have to make this a grape first. So guess what your body does? It removes the water from itself and puts it back in the raisin because it knows it's dehydrated. Some of y'all eating craisins, right? Cranberries that are raisins, right? Well, guess what your body does? Your body, I'm not saying you can't have any. I'm just saying you got to be aware of what's happening with your body. You could be dealing with sickness or headaches due to the dehydration and not realizing you're eating a whole bunch of dehydrated items. Right? You could just literally be eating a bunch of dehydrated items. right? Eating things in their natural state. Why not eat something raw? Why does everything got to be cooked? Why does everything have to be processed? Y'all might think it's disgusting, but if you having issues with dehydration, I promise you something that's easy to do. Eat a raw potato. It might be disgusting to you. Wash it down, all that stuff. I promise you, eat a raw potato, see what happens. You having problems with your pancreas. Guess what looks like your pancreas? Sweet potatoes. Eat a raw sweet potato, see what happens. And cooked if you want, but I'm just trying to tell you, a lot of stuff happens to your body when it's raw, when it's in its natural state. Because that's all your body's going to try to do is going to try to take what you cook and try to put it back together so it can now digest it. If it can't put it back together, it can't digest it. That's why certain things go straight through. Now, corn, especially made the way that Native Americans make it, even cornbread, the way that it used to be made, stuff like that, cornbread, hot water. Is it hot water cornbread? I'm mixing up my stuff now, but stuff like that stuff is awesome. Cornmeal, like the original stuff we used to do with cornmeal, not the Jiffy Mix and all that. Not saying Jiffy Mix don't. I know it tastes great because they got all that sugar and stuff in it and everything, but a lot of people ain't just had regular cornbread, as they saying that mother cornbread, that thing y'all like to talk about now, on that little thing that been traveling around, right? But a lot of people haven't had like actual cornbread. Have actual cornbread and see what happens in your life. Have corn that comes in multiple colors. See what happens in your life. Some of y'all would freak out. I know when I was young, I didn't know any better. I freaked out when they would show us pictures in our science books of corn that had like all of the browns and the oranges and blues and yellows. I was like, what is this? I thought corn is supposed to be yellow. I'm not saying you can't have corn that's just yellow, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of stuff out there that we have no clue about, that we don't look for. Do you know that like your plate should be every color? You should try to eat as much as possible with all colors represented on your plate. So don't just have brown meat and green vegetables and that's it. What about the yellows? Yellows are not just corn. You got yellow peppers. You got white cauliflower, even though white's not a color, but you get what I'm saying. You got cauliflower. You have red. You have oranges. You have blues. You have greens. You have purples. If you want to have all these colors the more colors you have in the diet, the more things your body is receiving to digest. And it even gets deeper than that, because then if you want to digest certain ways, that you got to know what stuff to combine and what not to combine. One of the worst things, by the way, to combine is a sandwich. If you're going to eat meat, hey, have it without the bread, or at least have it without have it with very little bread, flat bread, or a wrap. Like, did you know that? Meat and bread don't work that well together. That's just what people had to do when they ain't have nothing. But you'll actually discover, like, if you have like original African cuisine, and I'm talking about, when I say African, yes, I know there's many different tribes, many different countries. Yes, I'm talking about, for the most part, in original African cuisines, you don't really see them mixing bread and meat together. You really don't see it. If you look at a lot of original native dishes, native to the Americas, you really don't see bread. And I'm venturing a guess here, because I haven't had that much of it. But what I've seen and had as far as native Australian cuisine, you don't really see a mix of bread and meat together. Matter of fact, from what I've seen, I've lived around Polynesians. I've seen some Austronesians, right? And I've lived around Melanesians. They don't really do bread and meat together either. Right? Like, I know when I go back home and if I have jollof rice or if I have peanut stew, etc., like, we ain't really using bread like that. We using our hands, we digging in. I'm not even, and we eating straight up out of there. Like, you're dealing with stuff, fufu, whatever. Like, you're dealing with different types of like sweet potatoes, whatever. Like, you're not really using, yucatan, all this stuff. Like, you're not really using bread like that. Bread was something that was necessary for certain people who didn't have money, and they started mixing bread with everything. Is naan? I'm not. I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about naan. I think it's fine. But I think even in bread, like I'm saying, like do bread, but watch this. You should actually do, if you're doing like sandwiches, especially that's what most people do with bread, do sandwiches that are vegetable sandwiches. And use things that you can hold meat in, or if you're gonna do it, do like flatbread. Like for example, if you eat I'm sorry, somebody help me out. Kush, Ethiopia. Um, what's the bread that you use there? Um, I don't know why I have it. You know, when you had your lamb dish or when you have your beef dish or whatever. Well, pita kind of sort of, but that's not what they call it. Injera. Thank you. Right, when you're using the injera, like something like that is treated differently than the bread that you're used to. Right. So even that's a different type. You know, so I'm just saying, like you be surprised, right? So that injera is designed to go with that. They have a design where they know we can't give you too much of like the bread y'all are used to with meat. It causes issues, right? And they don't do, and you'll see in these places too, they don't really do stuff like if they do fries or French fries, like French fries are like Eurocentric. Now we know French fries weren't made in France, but I'm just saying like French fries are a Eurocentric concoction because we would have never thought to put water and oil together, potatoes and oil. It doesn't make sense. It makes you sick. You said fruit and vegetable hybrids. Most of them are not great for you, especially if you're talking about like seedless or any stuff like that. Now, to be honest with you, carrots are great for your eyes. Carrots technically are a hybrid. So there are some things here or there that can help. Like I actually am I still am nearsighted, but I used to be extremely nearsighted. I don't wear glasses anymore because I started having like a diet of nothing but carrots. When my wife and I first got together, matter of fact, I just posted a picture of myself that some of y'all saw on Facebook not too long ago, and it's from like 9, 10 years ago, something like that. And I'm in a suit and all that stuff, no hair, you know, in comparison to what I have now. And but I'm wearing glasses. Because I couldn't really do much of anything without glasses. But I just ate carrots. And if you slice carrots up, by the way, what do carrots look like? They look like your eyes. How you doing, Sister Betty? So you know, something like that. But once again, you got to be diligent. It has to be a lifestyle. Like I couldn't just eat carrots. A lot of people to do this. Eat carrots for a couple days. Oh, I'm not feeling any different. I'm tired of these carrots. No, like you got to be eating a lot of them for quite some time to get that healing. And also do some things once again that's going to help with blood flow, that's going to help with circulation, that's going to help with even the building up of nerves. Study foods that help to build up nerves. you know um you know, do some exercises, wear some stuff to protect you from, yes, I'm in front of the screen all day every day and stuff like that, but there's like I even buy like glasses that are reading glasses but are 0%, so basically they don't magnify, and I'll wear those. That helps protect my eyes. Put stuff on the back of these devices to where some of the radiation is going away. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's there. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's there. So you have to be ready for that. This is stuff that once again will allow us to live, to LIVE, right? To LIVE and not be EVIL. Amen, Sister Betty. Yeah, Sister Betty's been able, with the help of my wife, and stuff that she does as a herbalist and stuff, and some of the classes that she took, and she's been obedient to the stuff. And I'm not saying obedient to us. This is natural law. She's been obedient to the nature, to the law of nature. Right? Remember, we want to LIVE. We want to LIVE, excuse me, not EVIL. Right? You want to be dexterous in your living, not sinister. By the way, if you don't get that, dexter in Latin just means right side of things. Sinister just means left. I'm not saying if you're left-handed, you're sinister. Hopefully you get the context, right? But we want to make sure that we're correct. Right? I'm not trying to be right anymore. I'm trying to be righteous, of right lawful standing. Law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. And we got all these people that are trying their best to tell you why they're right about this and why somebody else is right. Like you have people, you have brothers who around 50, 60 years old, they die, and it's not that uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. That is not correct. This is not correct. right? Like you say, oh, like I was saying earlier, brother gets to a certain age, he shouldn't be able to get it up anymore. That is not correct. That means he's not healthy. You know, there's no such thing as somebody dying of old age, because you were not supposed to die of old age. But for real, look at what coroners will tell you, right? Look at what the Undertaker says, if you don't believe me, right? Because we like when evil speaks instead of life. Look what the Undertaker tells you when they have to prepare the body and all that stuff. Look at what they tell you. They never tell you somebody died of old age. You know why? Because it's not a reason of death. It's not reasonable to assume that somebody died of something. If the Most High takes me, my goal is I pray He allow me 150 years. Pray, praise God. But if He takes me sooner than that, I promise you, would not be because it was natural. It will not be a natural cause, because it was natural. Even if He's decided it, is He has decided it based upon something called death. Death had no power until sin entered. What are we supposed to be doing? Removing the leaven from our home. Now, if it doesn't be because He's decided, but if something else, if somebody shoots at me, if somebody tries to stab me, if somebody tries to hurt me physically, whatever the case might be, or if I'm just not eating something right, I can't say, oh yeah, it was just my time. It was not just my time. This is one of the biggest things that we have, that we live evil in. And the same way that we eat physically wrong, we eat spiritually wrong. And the problem with the eating spiritually wrong is that it turns into physical manifestation. They can't explain to you why somebody has a broken heart, but they'll tell you that if somebody loses a spouse, if you're not careful and you don't speak life into that person in the right way, all it takes is a couple years at the most. And that person who's been married to that person for 50 years, they'll die 2 years later. They might die 6 months later. Y'all seen it before. Y'all have heard stories about it before. You know why? Because there's a spiritual connection that's been broken. It wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. And so physically, if you don't make sure that they're delivered from that, something will start to break in them spiritually that will manifest through the soul. The word soul means psyche in the Greek. That's where you get their word psyche from, or psychology, spelled the same way, Psyche. And through the soul, now that you're having the spiritual conversation, that's pneuma in the Greek, pneumatical thought, which is Stoic thought that marries the soul, the spirit, and the body together. So this pneumatical thought process, y'all call it the mind, is having is through the soul. You call it, you call it the psychology, is now talking to the body. You call that physiology. Their whole life had been based off of a spiritual connection, and a psychological evaluation of everything that they did caused this person to be one with somebody in the physical means. And if we're not careful, we have a lot of people trying to give you guys things that aren't helping anybody to do what they're supposed to do. You got a lot of people out here. Thank you for the compliments, Spark. Appreciate you. We got a lot of people out here who are trying to give you things to help you out in things that have nothing to do with what's going on. That has nothing to do with what's going on. Look, I'm a preacher. I love the Most High. I'm here to tell you that a building of worship is not going to help somebody, right, to make sure that somebody is eating right. Just like it might not help somebody to make sure that they are spiritually right. And that's the problem, is that you got people that are more prepared to match in color for their praise and worship today than they are to make sure that what they live by matches what they preach or what they're going to sing today. And the time is up for that. Just looking like we're going to go longer than even long today, but we got to just make sure that this is real. The time is up for that. See, there's enough stress on us just because of what we do. I carry a heavy load with what I do every day. So my body's going to go through things anyways. So why would I make sure that I add to the stress by eating stuff that has nothing to do with what my body needs? It doesn't make sense. It's on our YouTube channel. We cover everything on YouTube. We record everything. This is part of a series we've been doing since February 23rd. And we're going to keep it going all the way through to through April 4th. And then April 5th will be Passover for us. And this series is called Removing the Leaven from Your Home, right? Leaven representing yeast, right? Or anything that causes stuff to rise up. And in this context, it represents anything that causes sin. Sin represents anything that causes you to miss the mark. So we're missing the mark in a lot of habits that we have. And we don't know how to eat physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, etc. right? There are more people who have learned life through the prism of Disney. And I've learned a lot of life through the prism of Disney, right? You kind of can't help it nowadays. But man, is there more than Disney? And do you know what Disney's been throwing in there? Do you not know who Jiminy Cricket is? We've never read the book, so of course not. But do you not know who he is? Do you not know that Pinocchio's a killer? Have you not watched some of the stuff that would make you think, huh, that's kind of weird he did that? Jiminy Cricket is supposed to be the conscience of the fact that Pinocchio crushed him and killed him on purpose. Because Pinocchio was a boy with no conscience, right? He's not supposed to think that there's such thing as right or wrong. Jiminy Cricket is a ghost. No, I'm busy trying to make sure that what I do is in relevance for my culture. But I will make sure that people aren't getting groomed by the people we're talking about now, because it seems like somebody like yourself is so groomed by them that you won't even listen to the truth. Thank you for being on. Now, if that's your way of saying hello, even if it's not, thank you for being on. Right? Like, you got to get to a place in a position like you've been groomed by some things. You thought that it was excellent, some of the stuff that you saw. And somebody, please, I'm gonna try my best to make sure. I know we're getting ready to go pat even for a Sunday. Sundays we go long on purpose, but I know I could talk about this forever. This is one of those days where everything's in alignment, and I'm sitting down too, so I'm a little more rested than I normally am. Like I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I'm not gonna do that to y'all. We've been going almost 4 hours now. So I'm not gonna do that to y'all. But I'm just trying to tell you, I'm trying to show you something, man. Like, this stuff is real. This stuff is real. We don't know how to eat. You are what you eat, though. Like, we don't know how to eat, but you are what you eat, though. We don't know how to eat, but you are what you eat. You see the problem? We talking about LIVE, but we backwards. We EVIL. How you doing, CR7? Like we don't know how to eat. We don't know how to eat criticism. Somebody trying to help you live better. But it's not salt, it's not sugar, it's not fat, it's not dairy, it's not something that makes my brain waves explode. And since I'm not killing myself, do you not know that when you're eating the food and your brain cells are exploding, it's the same thing as when you're getting the drug? You're killing yourself, and you're excited because you're killing yourself. It's euphoria. It's euphoric. The person that's chasing a high almost dies. The person that had that first cocaine hit or that first crack hit or that first dope hit or whatever you want to call it, right? That first heroin hit, whatever, that first shroom, that first, whatever, like, they keep chasing that over and over and over again because they're hoping to get the same thing. That first time, it was so close to death for them, such a close to death experience, and they liked the fact they felt great. They felt like the person who want to get choked out while they having you know what. Because I know I got some babies that watch sometimes. I got to be careful how much of this language I use with y'all, right? They love the fact that you're euphoric. They've had this feeling. They didn't realize that they were dying, but you know what? They don't care if they were dying. They want to get that same feeling back, so they keep chasing the same coke hit, the same crack hit, the same heroin hit, over and over again. You keep chasing the same food hit. Like, I can't drink for years now, probably like 8 years or so now. I can't drink McDonald's tea or any of those teas at all. You know why? Because I will go blind. Like, I was traveling on the road and was scared because I'm on the highway. I'll be honest, speeding a little bit, but I'm on the highway, going at high speeds, and all of a sudden I can't see for a second. And I'm talking to my wife, and I'm being honest. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I cannot see. I'm afraid to put my foot on the brake. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm going on a curve right now, whatever. Praise God, was only for like a few seconds, but I couldn't see. Because you're not drinking tea. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the problem. It's like, you're not even drinking tea. I used to work at fast food restaurants and stuff before I started upgrading a little bit and working at some regular restaurants, and then started managing those. I know what they put in the tea. You ain't having tea. We're not giving you tea. I know how much sugar goes in it. It's more than like we'll steep the tea. The tea bag will be up top, right? And as the tea bag goes down, we actually have to pour a bunch of sugar, like a packet of sugar that's bigger than the tea bag. We pour it in there, and then we have to make sure somebody comes by every once in a while to mix it up. Because if not, it will act. There's so much sugar in it, it will block the liquid from coming out. Like that's how much sugar is in there. That's how much sometimes syrup. No, we didn't use real syrup. We didn't use syrup where we were at, but that's how much sugar is in there. So literally, like I'm talking about the bag is like this. I'm not joking. Like the bag, if I was squish it like this thick and about like this. And the tea bag is just like a tea bag. It's bigger, but it's like it's thin. I can press the tea bag together. I can't press the sugar bag together. There's more sugar than tea. There's more sugar than tea, and then of course you got water. But obviously, all the tea can't even be mixed in. All the sugar rather can't even be mixed into the water. So you're eating sugar, drinking some water, and hoping that there's some tea left over. I remember those days. That was one of the things that made me look great in front of people because everybody wanted their tea. And so I would always make sure, because people don't mix it like they're supposed to. So I would always make sure every 20, 30 minutes or so, I'd be like, hey, somebody go over there, make sure you mix that tea. Because people were upset when that tea wasn't working. And you know what's interesting? People get upset even when you talk about their food. Just like they get upset when you talk about their spiritual food. What'd you say? That's interesting. Something similar happened to you. You lost your sight for a few seconds. Yeah. Yeah, I can't drink like for real, for real. If y'all love me, and I know y'all do, please don't ever give your boy no McDonald's or or Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A lemonade is dangerous too. But Chick-fil-A lemonade or tea or any of that stuff, like please don't. Right? Because your boy, I will. Like I look strange and stuff, especially because I know it come in the styrofoam. Normally, you give me a styrofoam cup. Usually, I'm looking at you strange because I'm like, you might be trying to kill me. I don't know. Oh, energy drinks. Oh yeah, most def. I haven't done energy drinks. I used to do what is that? When I was doing moving furniture, we used to use the Nas. I don't know if they even sell those anymore. The Nas drinks, and they used to have the one that looked like the faucet on the top, that huge one. Man, that was so stupid. Like we used to sit there and tell each other we could hear our hearts beating, like not feel. Yeah, I could feel it. I'm talking about I could hear my heart beating. I'm not talking about just in my head. I'm talking about I could hear it. Like I could. It was like like that, right? And I might be going too slow. It felt like, that's what it felt like, right? But we used to drink that all the time, right? Thought I was getting away with it because I was younger, but guess what? I got issues now. Had to start eating myself right and letting some stuff heal. Yeah, monster drinks and stuff like that. Yeah, or even, I don't know if y'all remember, you didn't used to have to just go to a club or something to get this, and now they supposedly banned them from most places. But you used to be able to go to 7-Eleven. If it wasn't 7-Eleven, I know it was gas stations, and you used to be able to get the energy drink with the alcohol mix. I did that like twice. Never again. I think I did it twice in the same day. Didn't realize what happened. And I don't know what company it was. Don't give me the line. I just know you could go there and you can get it. I don't know. I know there were multiple companies doing it. I know some people were going paying money at the club, but you could pay like $3-4 for a can. And it was the wildest experience. I don't even know what I did it for. I think I just did it because people were saying it was existed. You say, yeah, they trying to kill us and we just taking it in. Yes, yeah. Well, Red Bull. Some people put Red Bull with. I don't know if did Red Bull ever actually officially do. I think people were mixing the alcohol with the Red Bull. I don't know if Red Bull ever did. Red Bull ever actually dive into that? They might have. Wouldn't surprise me at this point. You said you experienced it when you try to eat foods that aren't your temple anymore. What they do, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if I ever had the Cisco. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you got something great out of Hayana. How you doing, Sister Adams? By the way, I need to get the link for your stuff so I can listen to your album and everything. We can start making sure people getting it. Minister Sharon was telling me that she was listening to it the other day. I was like, yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to it. Hopefully you're doing well. Oh, Jägermeister and Red Bull shots. Mm. Yeah, I've never really freaked with the. I don't even know. Well, you know why I'm saying freak, because that's not what I used to say. But I never really used to mess with the Jägermeister like that. I think I had Jägermeister. Hold on, did I do Jägermeister? No, I was thinking it was Yingling. Yeah, I don't think I ever messed with Jägermeister for real, for real. Four Loco, I've seen people do Four Loco. I never had Four Loco. I'm not really a big drinker for real, anyways. A few times that I've only gotten drunk in my life like 2 or 3 times. I think twice I would say I was drunk. Like no, 3 times. I had to say 3 times. Once I was foolish and I lived like literally 2 blocks down the street and I drove. I traveled down the street. I shouldn't have, but I did. It took me forever to park. It was terrible. It was a boring day celebration, actually. So I'm surprised anybody even let me get behind the wheel of the car, but it is what it is. Praise Yah that He protected myself and others from me. Then there was once actually I was at a place and I was with a friend, so I thought, and the guy was giving me all these chasers. I didn't realize he was giving me chasers and stuff like that, and how dangerous chasers were at the time. And I don't drink like that, so I woke up to a catheter being put in me. And that was the second time. The first time, actually, I got messed up. I was young, maybe 17, 16, 17. Went to a New Year's Eve party with a bunch of cats that be drinking. I won't say what diaspora, but you probably could guess. Anyways, and the person's mother was one of those mothers that like, well, if you're gonna get drunk and stuff, anyways, I prefer you do it at my house. And so we all went over there and partied. What they call it, the sausage fest, total sausage fest, bruh. Like barely any itty girls that were over there at all. We all young teenagers, whatever. And I was blessed because I drank. I had a bunch of screwdrivers and something else, right? And I drank and I passed out, but I could see everything that was going on. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that was passing out. It's not really passing out. I could see everything going on, but I couldn't move. And so the cats that I hang out with, I think it's because they respected me, because that those type of parties you go to with those type of brothers, they normally do stuff to you when you messed up. But I think because I have my eyes open, or because whatever, I think they just left me alone. Maybe because I'm 6'5.5", maybe they thought I'd come for them or something like that. I don't know afterwards. But I was looking everywhere, but I couldn't move. Is that what it's called? Blackout visionary? Okay. I could see what was going on. I remember everything. I remember being scared. Longest, like it was probably like a good 3 hours or 4 hours or so. I could not move. So I remember being scared. Like if somebody tried to do something, I'm not gonna be able to stop nothing. So I was aware of everything, but I couldn't go to sleep. And so yeah, those are the 3 times in my life. Any other time, I make sure that I am definitely sober. You can drink and still be sober. So I make sure that I'm sober, or drink very slowly if it's something that I think could be something that's crucial. And definitely, if I feel like it's something that's iffy, I definitely don't want to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. That was like in the middle of doing that, even though I was drunk. I remember just being extremely scared, but not having the faculties to say like, well, then stop driving, stupid. Like it's not funny. It is what it is. And I think, yeah, that I was going basically like off of like right outside of a military base, off of a road that nobody used, especially at that time of night, or else like it could have been really, really bad. But I'm saying all that to say, I'm sitting up here giving testimony, making myself look bad. It is what it is. All right, make of yourself no reputation. Be willing to be real, or be willing to be real. But I'm just trying to say, like, there's a lot of stuff that we eating, and if we don't start reversing it, we're gonna have some problems in our lives. And we got to start realizing that we got to start teaching this stuff at a much earlier age. I wish, like, I grew up with a mother and father. Father, I got my work ethic from him. He worked 2.5 jobs. He's still trying to work. He's still working a full-time job and overtime to this day. Um, I saw a mother that worked until she couldn't work anymore, and tried to do the stay-at-home mother thing until multiple sclerosis took over. And even with her losing memory of who we were, and sometimes it being a scary thing to deal with, I remember ultimately overwhelming positivity. But I can tell you, I didn't learn about being a husband or wife, even in seeing that. There's certain things that I carry that other people probably don't carry because I saw both sides of things. But I still didn't know. So I can only imagine what it is for people that grew up with families where fathers weren't really trying to be real fathers and mothers weren't really trying to be real mothers. I can only imagine what that was and what that's like. I learned more about it through you all. And hey, how you doing? Did I say hello to you yet, Sister Aphrodisiac and Sister Tori? Thank y'all for being on. If you didn't have a past, it'd be hard to relate. Yeah, that's real talk too. I often am thankful for that too. I tell people all the time, I love Yahushua. I love Yeshua. I love Christ. I love the Messiah. I love Mashiach. But I tell people this all the time. I don't identify with them as much as I identify with Paul. And the reason is because Paul went through some things that the Messiah did go through things and he died for me, sure. But hear what I'm saying. I don't know what it is to never look at a woman and not one time in my life think about her body. Now, I'm not saying every woman I've ever looked at, but hear what I'm saying. I don't know what it is to never have had a moment of weakness in that. I don't know what it is to have never wanted to do the right thing and always did the right thing. I don't know what that's like. I do know what it is, like Paul says, though, that the things that I don't want to do, or the things that I end up doing, the things that I do want to do, or the things that sometimes I end up not doing. Right? I can relate to that. I'm not saying I can't relate to the Messiah at all. I'm just saying it's easier for me to relate with Paul. It's easier for me to relate with Moses. Like, you lived in Kemet your whole life. You thought that's what you were supposed to be. You were supposed to be royalty in that, and then come to find out, oh, wait a minute, like, you actually are part of the slaves, and the slaves are the ones who are going to be freed, and they're going to be freed in such a manner that it's going to make the people that you grew up with become your enemy. Like, I identify with that. I'm not saying I can't identify with Christ at all, right? But I'm just saying I identify with Esther. You're supposed to be royalty, and the people who raised you are telling you stay real and make sure that your people, they need to be connected to something greater than themselves, right? And you sitting up there like, okay, I'm gonna try this out, but like, this person could have me killed too if they find out who I really am. But okay, I'm gonna step up for them, and I'm gonna step up for y'all so that y'all don't have to kill. And somebody else had to step up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can identify with those. Identify with King David. People be talking about David like he trash sometimes, and I'm like, man, y'all, you want to act like you've never in your mind once thought about cheating at all? Like, you've never done that? You've never looked at I'm not saying you put it together, you had it. No, I'm talking about you telling me you never looked at porn. You telling me you never saw a dude with hardboard, what do they call it, hardboard or abs, hard, whatever it is, washed abs, I don't know what you call it. Whatever, right? You never saw a guy with the six-pack and never thought for a second, never licked your lips once? You never saw, what's his name that y'all used to like so much, Morris Chestnut? Michael Jackson ain't had no face no more, and y'all was sitting up there, Michael. He didn't even sound, man, make that change. Y'all was, come on now. You know what I'm saying? I don't identify with people who always act like they ain't never been through nothing. That in of itself is evil. That in of itself is a lie. Washboard abs, thank you. Yeah, I knew I was somewhere, somewhere in there. Yeah, I was somewhere in there, right? But I'm just saying, like, we had this weird thing and this weird philosophy. There's gonna be a bunch of people that's gonna go to services today and tell you how like they've never gone through anything, and they have the same testimony every week. God is good, giving honor to the pastor and to God into this assembly. And I just wanted to say that God is everything. And when I look back over my life and where he brought me from a mighty long way. And it's like, that's been your testimony since 1972. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't be excited about those things. I'm just saying, like, ain't nothing changed since like you ain't never had a testimony that said, you know what, I didn't think I was gonna make it. And somebody got me out of my way, and I began to really cuss them out and say that, but you know what, I praise Yah that he helped me to, like, you ain't got nothing like that. Like, everything is just you perfect out here. That's the people you gotta be careful about. When I do marital coaching, when I do life coaching, I don't always say anything about it. But I ask questions in all the coaching. Anybody who's done coaching with me, you know that I'll ask a bunch of questions. You know why? I like to listen to your responses. And a lot of people's responses are scary. Because a lot of people will never have any kind of response that has accountability attached to it. And a lot of your testimonies are scary because they don't have any accountability attached to it. You said you don't think people understand how much they eat and drink and can add 200 calories or more and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. Even in your drinks, the calories for sure. Yeah. You know, and like, so a lot of your stuff that I hear stuff, that's why I don't really be caring about people's titles and stuff, especially if that's part of your testimony. I praise God that he's had me be an apostle for 20 years. And before that, I was a pastor for 10 years. And before that, I was a man of God. And before that, and yeah, I was a sinner, but I haven't sinned because he called me out of being a sinner. And I'm like, you ain't said nothing. That whole testimony was nothing. I'm sorry. Like, if that make me bad, that you say that I'm judging you, that may be bad. But I'm just saying you have no accountability in your testimony. I'm so glad that God paid these bills for me. I was in debt. I didn't know what to do. I've been working and doing what I'm supposed to, but I just had bills. But I praise God that he paid the bill. So weren't you the same brother that was eating out like every night? Like, y'all have service every night and y'all eat out every night, and you was paying for other people to make sure everybody saw it. But now you want to praise y'all that he took care of the bills. I mean, yeah, but come on now, like, there's some accountability there, bro. You know, I'm just saying, and nobody wants to be held accountable. Everybody wants, that's why people love to be lawless. That's why people don't want LIVE. They don't want LIVE. They want EVIL. They want to reverse that thing. But for those of us that want to go higher, it's time for us to start reversing it back to live. Come out of evil. Come out of evil. Come out of EVIL and start LIVE, right? You can have life. Yahushua said they came that you might have life and have more abundantly. Right? Life look different than live. Life is different than live. Life look different than live. Life is different than live. A lot of people are only trying to do the bare minimum. Got a bare minimum mentality. Not trying to do anything else except bare minimum. All I want to do is just enough. All I want to be is recognized for just enough. All I want to operate in is just enough. Don't tell me I can be better in my habits. I'm trying to do just enough. Don't try me to study more word. I just want to do just enough. And then you get upset because y'all even have pastors out here who can only do just enough. I can't be mad at the pastors for preaching when they're part of organizations that want them to work more hours than they do and will somehow, some way want them to come up with a better word. We don't protect our leadership. We don't protect our ministerial staff. That's why I said at some point, the ministerial staff, bare minimum, the people making calls on this stuff, the people that's going to be on the land, the people that's going to be growing stuff, they can't have 9 to 5s. They can't. Like, you can't expect it. Like, if you want the musician in your place, guess what? That's why a lot of them get paid. You know why? Because the best musicians are the ones who do it all day. Yeah, you can get mad at me all day, but see, if you want to be biblically based, Levites aren't supposed to have jobs. So at some point, we're gonna have to make sure that Levites can't be in the field. They can't work in the field. You want them to come to, they can't do the hospital visit if they got to do the 9 to 5. By the way, same thing with your business. You've been called to a business. How you gonna do your business, but you still got to make sure, like, how you gonna make cakes, but you got to work for Amazon 60 hours a week? Doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it just doesn't. How are you going to be able to make sure that you can heal people, but you can't study because you got to have 2 jobs and take care of your babies and take care of your husband and take care of this and take care of that? This is why community becomes important. What do I mean by Levites? I mean, read your Bible and read about Levites. And leave, or if you don't know about Levites, read in the Bible where it talks about Levites. Levites are not supposed to work in the field. They're the only tribe out of the 12 tribes of Israel that specifically were not supposed to own land. They were not supposed to have jobs. They were supposed to make sure that they were in Yah's will at all time. And if they weren't, then they didn't get houses. They didn't get food. They didn't get any kind of money, because that was what they were supposed to do. Nowadays, people sign contracts to do as little bit with the people of Yah as possible and just give you a word on Sunday and maybe talk to a couple of people here or there. But Levi was specifically not supposed to make sure that they were in the field. Because how can you make sure that you're running stuff, but you're busy after everything else? It wouldn't make sense if you're the president of the United States. Y'all want a president of the United States, but you talking about, hey, be the president of the United States and, work 80 hours a week for Geico. Make sure you get that insurance together, bro. But if you make sure Geico's straight, then I'll have more respect for you as the president. You also make sure that your country fall apart. By the way, it's falling apart anyways because they don't work for you anyways. That's another conversation. But I'm just trying to say, that's the way that people want it to work. We've said this before. Some sisters don't like it, but y'all, those who were part of when we went through the algorithm of an Israelite queen and the algorithm of an Israelite king, y'all already know that we broach the subject from multiple platforms, different areas, and I'm not coming from a misogynistic viewpoint. I'm coming from a very cultural viewpoint, but not misogynistic or patriarchal, etc. By the way, patriarchy to us just means that you're a king, and kings treat queens differently than what the patriarchy treats y'all like. Nevertheless, right? Remember, we said this, that even the way stuff is designed, you can't be mad at a wife that wants security, because a woman's number one need, this is not even just our culture, this is called the 6 basic human needs. Number 1 and number 2 need of a woman are going to be number 1, security, number 2, affection. Which is why there's no woman that wants to have to work. I didn't say she can't outwork you. I didn't say that she can't have a job. I didn't say that she can't have her own business. I didn't say that she got to bow down to you, because in our culture, a woman's not in front of a man. She's not behind a man. She's not above a man. She's definitely not beneath a man. She's beside him, right? But there is not a woman on this planet that is designed to want to have to work. By the way, men don't necessarily want to have to work either, but we like work a lot more. I didn't say job. Job is toil, by the way. So be careful about job. Job is when you toil for somebody else. If you work your job harder this year than you did last year, your boss will go on a better vacation next year than he did this year. Right? But a sister shouldn't have to work. That's not what if she wants to work all day, baby. I've told you, my wife, if she want to go back to where she came from, she could easily surpass me as far as how much money we bringing in just like that tomorrow. But she doesn't have to. She has the right, and she's able to have her dreams and vision, and the business she started now, it's secure within the vision that we have together, that I was given by the Most High. Because once again, she's not in submission. She's not submitted to a man. She's in submission, submitted to a mission. And the mission that was presented to her at the beginning of our relationship, without us doing dating and all that stuff that y'all say has to happen, there was a mission that was presented. This is what's going to happen. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I need you to help me to multiply in these places, this and that. But I do know this is the vision. This is the mission. This is what it's going to look like. At some point, we're going to have to be ready to travel. At some point, we're going to have to do this. At some point, we're going to have to do that. Right? Like, that was the mission that was presented. And she took the skills that literally were helping people around this whole country. If you have housing pretty much on any level, she was somebody that dealt with what you're dealing with. She was somebody that had to make sure that whatever you're dealing with, whatever's lawful and all that stuff, it had to flow. Finances had to flow. It had to go through her at a certain point. That's the level of, and guess what? So there's only, if she took that and decided that my mission was important enough that rather than do that for Uncle Sam, she would do it for us in our diaspora. That's why I needed to find a wife, not find a woman, but find a wife. And I found what? Something that helped me to obtain favor from a dawn. Because she spoke life into that and said, well, if I can speak life into something that's just going to be death anyways, let me speak life into my people. And sure enough, now you guys have rewarded her by helping her to be the businesswoman that she's become. See what I'm saying? See, we went from we went from EVIL and we reversed that thing to LIVE. See, my marriage is alive. You know what I'm saying? My marriage is alive. My children are alive. SOC is alive. This live is alive. There's not anything that we don't touch that is not the reverse of evil. So even if evil is involved at some point, even people that come in that be evil, at some point you got to be eradicated, because if we're going to reverse evil, either you're going to change to be live, or you can go ahead and you're going to just stay where you are. So we praise y'all for today. We thank you. We appreciate you. And some of this traveling that's going to be happening, hopefully we'll be able to make sure that we're on live every day for you all. At least for the next month. I'd say at least probably till about April 10th when these classes start up again. It's going to be a little difficult, but hopefully we'll be able to make sure that we guys are having you guys be able to connect to all of these live sessions and everything coming up. Might even have to be in some malls and things like that just because of where we're going to be and all this stuff. But y'all keep us in prayer. Thank you for those that have been praying for me when I've been dealing with a little bit of abdominal pain. It's gotten a lot better and been treating stuff together. It's not hernia related, which is great because that was my first fear. I've been dealing with that off and on since wow, time flies. Either 2019 or 2020. One of the two. But anyways, but yeah, it had nothing to do with that. So we praise y'all for that. And thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your love, your gifts, all those things. We're going to get ready to do our shout out. So if you're on TikTok, if you want to be part of our shout out real quick, which is something we use for if you want to be part of a like-minded community and see some things that we do outside of just the live sessions that we've been doing, feel free to go ahead and just stick around for a little bit. If you're on YouTube or you're watching this from some other platform later on, feel free to look in the description with the video to be able to find out how you can get in contact with us. We are going to be starting this week our family fast, intermittent fasting. So that's from sun up to sundown or from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., whichever one ends up working out best for you. Of course, if you got to take medicine or if there's certain things you have to eat to make sure that you can do, please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure you do those things, okay? Don't hurt yourself. But if you want more information, just kind of stick around to the end on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, look at the description box for more information on how you can get in contact with us. But we thank y'all. We appreciate you so very much. We appreciate the time, talent, effort, energy, gifts, calls that you guys make behind the scenes, checking on each other. Brothers, again, thank you so much for great turnout last night as we continue to go through the book of Jasher. Those that are in the Carolinas, please keep up with Minister Sharon and Minister Joseph as they are looking at possibly trying to get some kind of meetup together for you guys physically. I may or may not be able to attend. I will try my best to. Some of y'all in the Carolinas, and it's just going to be like a few of you, we may or may not be able to say hi to y'all real quick, passing through. Prayerfully, we'll be coming through there this week. Should have been last week. But stuff just, it is what it is. But those who are in the DMV area, Baltimore, everything's still on for the date that we talked about. So hopefully we'll have that set up for you guys very soon as far as the exact place where that'll be. And if you guys want more information just on stuff we're doing in general around the world, especially in the United States in certain areas where we have that set up, those in the UK, we're trying our best to figure out how to get this set up where we can have you guys on. Those of you who are in Jamaica as well, we're making a big push over there. Those of you who are in Vegas, we know you guys are trying to meet up as well, so we're going to try and make sure that we get you guys the info that you need to ensure that everything's going to be straight for Passover as well. And everybody who's trying to meet up wherever you are, you know, we got a lot of y'all in still a lot of places. There's still some time left. We got till April 5th, so as we learn more about each other, grow, connect, call, contact, etc. Let's do what we got to do. Like I said, the next semester will probably be starting April 10th, that week of April 10th. So I'm not sure what days, what classes will be, but we'll try to have that stuff out to you guys ASAP as well. And hopefully by the end of today, it is family day. Sunday for me is family day, but hopefully by the end of today, we'll also have on YouTube some things as far as yeast and leaven to look out for. And we'll also have some different recipes and some different things to talk through what we should be looking for and looking to as far as what's going on. Patreon family, just hang in there with us. I know the last day, maybe last 2 days, we haven't had as much content come up as what we normally have been. So that'll be made up for you guys very shortly, and you'll see why, because there's going to be a bunch of stuff coming. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. We look forward to talking to you guys soon. We once again give all honor and praise to the Most High, and we give honor and praise to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you for those that support that. Also, too, if you are looking for a Passover package, getting close to the time where we're going to have to know, we're pretty much going to have all the herbs and everything in place and picked out and everything pretty much today. So we'll have all that stuff ready to go, and the bitter herbs and all that and everything together where they can be packaged up for you. And so from that point on, all we're going to really be doing is waiting for the opportunity to be able to order the lamb. And once we order the lamb, we got to make sure it's selected by April 1st. And from that, then everybody should be getting everything together and getting it sent to you. So I will try to go through the list that I have. If you're interested in that, just put that in the chat in a second as well. But thank you. We're going to go ahead and do our shout out at the end. So let's go ahead and sign off. For everybody, if you're on TikTok, just stick around a little bit after this and you'll be able to see how the shout out works. To everybody else, thank you so much for being on. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, just love that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom, family. In the meantime,